All right, the meeting will come to order. This is the November 28, 2023 meeting of the Development Review Board. The only matter on our agenda for tonight is the continuation of the hearing on the permit number 23-301, Masterson Development Properties. As a preliminary item, I wanted to, Ted had mentioned to me, and I thought we should bring up that he had some discussions with Jim Dumont regarding a piece of property that Ted owns in Lincoln and is adjacent to Jim regarding a possible sale. It's my understanding that no purchase and sale agreement has been signed. Is that still the case?
No, we have one now.
Oh, you have one now.
You all since then, we have a purchase and sales agreement.
Okay, so
By all parties.
okay. So it's important, or at least relevant, to be raised as a potential matter for recusal. You feel like it has an impact, or would have an impact on your ability to judge this case?
No,
What do you
But-
think, Jim?
I think it's completely irrelevant, but Ted and I talked about it. We realized we had to disclose it.
Yeah, I agree. It's appropriate to disclose it.
yeah. And my thought is that if any party objects, to me, ruling on this, then I shall recuse myself. That, that's
Well,
my judgment.
Sure. I mean, I don't think, in my view, that it doesn't require recusal, particularly since you already have a PNS signed. The downside of recusal would be that we're down to 4, which means you need a unanimous verdict for approval. And so, in my view, you should stay on.
Mhm.
It's primarily your call, since you're the adverse party, but
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
okay.
I think it's totally your decision, Ted, but I don't think you have a conflict. I think you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move forward then. Since we last met, I can't remember the date, sometime in August, I think. We had continued the hearing in order to enable the applicant to generate some expert testimony or data on traffic and noise in particular. That has been done. The expert reports were previously submitted as required 2 weeks in advance of today to the opponents and Attorney Dumont. So we'll start with hearing. You want to do traffic first or sound first?
Yeah, I can just introduce who we've got. We've got Ryan Augustine and Roger Dickinson of Trudell Consulting Engineers
Let's
to
just
discuss the traffic.
let's just do traffic first and then
Yeah.
sound. I
Yeah.
think traffic is briefer. So you want to come up, sir?
Sure.
Ryan?
Yeah, so I did the traffic.
Wait a sec.
Just,
You might as well sit so they can pick you up, and also I need to swear you in. You solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give before this development review board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so please walk us through your traffic report.
Sure. So I'll say I did the report, but Roger is the real expert and kind of worked with me through this process and reviewed everything. But basically, we looked at what Josh is looking to do and what Greg had provided us for information with bringing the shop to Lower Hatch Road, and just looked at the trip generation of the project, what kind of extra traffic will be on the road, and see if that will cause any adverse issues for the road and people who live there. We also looked at just the overall road conditions, see if there would be issues in that. And starting with the chip generation, we saw that For a single family home, there's gonna be 10 trips per day, which,
Let me just stop you there for a second, Ron. I want to make sure Brenda and Tom and John, do you all have you've all had a chance to see and review the expert reports, right?
I have,
Brenda?
yes,
Brenda, yes? Yep. Yes, okay, good. Keep going.
yeah.
and I'd like to commend the applicant for doing them. They're very helpful.
Okay, keep going, Ryan.
Yeah, so the single family home average 10 trips per day. And their current shop, I was told 50 trips per day, however, only 15 trips per day will be added to the shop at Lower Notch Road. Most of that will be traffic from the employees. There will only be 1 or 2 large vehicles per day. Those trucks will travel south to Route 116 rather than going north on Lower Notch Road to Bristol. So overall, that road, Lower Notch Road, we did a traffic analysis. We had a camera count. We came up with AADDT, which is the annual average daily traffic of 224 vehicles per day, and we came up with a value of 35 vehicles per hour.
Let me just stop you for a second. Hey, Carol? Carol?
Yeah,
So you need to speak up if anybody goes too fast or you're not getting this, because we're gonna need some good minutes here.
okay.
So just give a holler, okay?
I'm also going on being pretty sure that most of this is in the report.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
That's true, but if you're not getting something, please speak up.
Okay,
Yeah, and I'll try not to repeat a lot of this. All this is in the report. But the basics for the level of the road level of service is right now we calculate there being a max vehicles per hour to be 35. With the addition of the shop, it will only increase to 40 to 45 max, which that road is able to accommodate that, and that will not increase the efficiency or congestion of that road. That will,
So it's gonna stay at level of service A?
yes, correct. And that's the biggest thing we investigated for that road. But we also looked at the road conditions and the road safety, and there is no crashes listed on the V-Trans 5-year crash history. So that was not a big concern for this road. And we also looked at just the width, speed limit, everything is appropriate. The one thing that we did notice is the intersection sight distance coming out of the driveway.
The driveway.
Yeah, it's a little bit limited looking north. That could just be,
Is it just north or is it both?
there's a little bit of issue to the right, but the higher concern is looking to the left.
So,
to north.
yeah, so the sight distance, the recommended sight distance is what, 390?
Yes, we have 390.
And that's what's the source of that? Is it a standard? Is it a recommendation? What is it?
Would you want to speak on that?
What was the question again, sir?
With the 390 feet intersection sight distance.
Yeah, 390 feet is a recommended intersection sight distance. And that provides level of comfort and minimizes the.
Wait a second, you gotta tell us who you are. And I gotta swear you. We gotta tell Carol who you are.
He agreed when you were swearing.
All right,
this
you're
gentleman
already
in.
sworn, so tell us your name.
Roger Dickinson.
This is Roger Dickinson, Carol. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so basically the idea of providing 390 feet of intersection sight distance is to minimize the disruption to traffic flow on Lower Notch Road. The person or the motorist that is exiting the driveway is able to see traffic sufficiently far away so that they can pull out and not cause that oncoming vehicle to have to drastically slow down, they can basically continue. The car that's exiting gets up to speed, the car that's approaching, does not have to brake, for the vehicle that's exiting. In this case, there's a lot of roadside vegetation, that can be cleared back. We generally measure sight distances from a point 15 feet back from the edge of the road. And that's so that person, again, that's exiting the driveway doesn't have to pull out into the road in order to see oncoming traffic. The sight triangle, the resulting sight triangle is such, in this case, that there's a lot of vegetation alongside the road that's blocking this.
Is there a ditch?
And
Is
so,
there a ditch on both sides?
No ditch,
Is there a ditch?
no ditch.
No ditch on either side?
No, not no ditch.
property frontage extends to the north quite some distance.
Yeah,
And therefore enables Atchison to trim that vegetation back and meet the recommended site distance.
So that's this is 390 applies to an intersection, so you're considering that, is this an intersection or is this a driveway?
Well, we consider driveways to be intersections.
Okay,
Yeah, there is, there's also the minimum stopping site distance, which at 35 miles an hour is 250 feet. That is the absolute minimum that in the traffic engineering world, to prevent an adverse traffic safety condition from
250, did you say? 250?
So,
Yes.
Okay.
but we always like to have the intersection, the larger distance.
All right, so remind me what we've got for site distance going both ways.
we had 150 looking north and 226 looking south. Again, the set looking south was there's just like a branch or tree in the way that it could get cut and will not be an issue. You'll be able to see way beyond 390. And then to looking north, if you're looking left, again, greater concern, but once more vegetation is cleared out, it will be sufficient.
Can you get to 250
We believe you can.
on both sides?
We believe you can get to
Can you get
250.
to 390 on both sides?
I believe you can get to 390 looking to the north. I don't think I can answer that or confirm that at this point though. But I would believe you can.
Could I just ask for a repeat of some basic numbers?
Okay, so the driveway is pretty close to the southern boundary line.
Yeah.
But those trees that you see within the boundary were the ones that we're talking about.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the south, the site distance to the south.
Kevin, could you just put on the record the exhibit that we're just discussing?
Yeah, we're looking now at Carroll site plan C-1.0.
And I just need to share with the masses. Give me 2 seconds.
And could I ask for a repeat of those numbers? 150 looking
North,
north, and what was the other number?
226 looking south. Those numbers are in the traffic report.
Oh, thanks, sorry.
So is this a Free Rod Road?
Most of the clearing will actually be within the right of way of the road. But if needed, it can extend onto Masterson's property.
But not looking south.
Not to the south, no.
Well, it's a public highway. There's a town right of way. So you confirmed it's a 3 Rod Road? Or are we guessing by default?
I haven't confirmed it
Okay.
myself.
Yeah, okay.
That is
probably-
normally the
It probably, well, that's the default.
It is.
It probably is, but not always.
And did Mr. Dickerson say that 250 feet is, quote, the absolute minimum regarded for safety? I just want to see if I
This is-
heard that right.
Safe
Point
stop.
out also that in this case, most of the traffic will be exiting and turning right to the south. And so really, it's the sight distance to the north that we're mostly concerned with. There's very little traffic that will be turning left and heading north. Particularly on the heavy vehicles. All the heavy vehicles are going to be traveling to the south.
Yeah, but did I hear you correctly to say that 250 feet is the quote absolute minimum for safety?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the safe stop distance,
The absolute minimum.
the minimum safe stop distance according to engineering standard.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further on traffic?
No? You have any questions?
Well, Jim, you want, well, let me ask the board first. Is anybody on the, before I
Stop the share.
turn it over to Jim Dumont, anybody on the board has any additional questions for Ryan or Roger? On
Not
traffic?
at this moment.
Okay. Jim, you wanna?
Can I just add something real quick?
Sure.
You guys,
Where do you wanna be?
Greg McKenney with Murray Masterson, just so we're cleared up, from our last submission, we had talked with these guys and just tried to get a little more conservative number. As far as total vehicle trips generated, so in this report, you'll see 15 trips per day. 3 we're gonna assume for large trucks, 12 for work trucks. And we would like, if we're applying, as we are, to propose that work trucks can go either direction, north or south. Heavy equipment and dump trucks will be headed south
So
exclusively.
when you say work trucks, you mean pickup trucks?
Pickup trucks. Those were the changes from our last hearing.
Got it.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question before we turn it over to the
All
audience.
right, okay.
I just noting that, I noted that in the traffic study, it said that the current traffic at the current headquarters is reported at 50 trips a day. That wasn't measured anyway, that's just self-reported.
Correct.
So, do you know if that's close to being accurate? It's just what you were told.
Yeah, if I may, John, that's a number that we had talked to with TCE. And that's really, we tried to merge the report with future plans, and disclose, more or less what we anticipate Josh's business uses right now at the current location. And we're showing, here's what we're proposing, at his contractor yard. So
When you say current location, you mean the location on North Street?
on North Street, correct. So it's irrelevant to the application at this time.
What?
His shop, the 50 trips generated at his shop now is really irrelevant to what we're
No.
applying for.
But that's what you're gonna be using, you're projecting for use on this site.
Not in this
15 per day.
application. It's 15.
Okay, I'm sorry then. I've had a long day today, so somewhere in there you lost me, so please. My fault, not yours, so.
Yes.
We have had testimony, have we not, in prior hearings that at some
Yeah.
point the business could move down there and in fact, it shows already
Well,
a
the
building.
contract, the
I just,
contract,
That is correct, John,
The
but we're not applying for that at this
the
time.
contractor's yard, right, but so just now that I'm totally muddled. Tell me what the trips per day you're
15,
on this site,
yes.
12 of which are pickup trucks for employees or work trucks.
Yep.
And 3 are dump trucks or other trucks hauling equipment.
Correct,
Okay,
and those are averages
yes.
over time. So one day it could be a lot more and one day it could be 0.
Yes, we've discussed this in previous applications.
yeah, well, and also in the we're gonna get to sound, but in the sound reports, there's a discussion of when the topsoil a week or so a year, when the topsoil will be stockpiled and also going out. So those would be heavier weeks on truck trips.
Exactly, yes. We had discussed 2 major events a year.
Well, why don't we hear about those now? At least in relation to the traffic generated.
Yeah, I believe we had said in the previous application, let me pull that out.
Well, I mean, you talk about it in
No,
the
previous year.
in the sound studies, so whatever your most recent evidence is about what traffic can be expected with respect to the topsoil collection area, or
Right, these values are averages.
yeah,
We had previously said a maximum of 80 trips occurring in a single day.
and a trip is in and out.
Yep.
So in is one trip, out is another.
Correct.
And that would be those trips would be generated when topsoil is being stockpiled.
Correct.
And that you tell me how you anticipate, or what time period you anticipate that stockpiling to occur? Or what
The
period?
length of time?
Yeah, is it,
What time?
it sounds like from the sound studies, it sounds like it's a week or two.
Yeah, we had said,
I don't care what you had said.
okay, a week, up to a week.
I want to hook it into the actual evidence presented through RSG.
Okay, we'll say 1 week, 2 events a year,
5 business days, 7 calendar days,
5 business days.
and you're saying this will be a permit condition you're stipulating to?
Well,
Yes.
so
So this would be
the,
considered a, maximum hauling event.
okay,
There could be, and a single day event that occurs.
well, that would be within
Yes.
this
Right.
I'm gonna call it the topsoil stockpiling period.
Sure.
So we're thinking the proposal is a single week, right?
Mhm.
In a calendar year,
2 single weeks.
2 single weeks. Consecutive or separate? Josh?
Could be,
Separate.
but-
They'd be separate?
Yeah.
What are you thinking, what's the thinking on the timing of when these weeks would be?
Well, whenever it's dry enough to do it. 'cause
Yeah,
that's kind
so
of
you
the
try and,
drill.
is the plan to get the topsoil stockpiled in the spring?
Yeah, it'd be spring and then maybe a late summer.
Okay,
It is more job specific, so I don't want to pin a specific window of time as to when we're limited to do this.
no,
So it could be at any point during the year, but generally speaking.
Yeah.
The spring and summer.
May I?
well, wait.
Yeah.
I mean, don't worry about being pinned. I want to get the testimony out about what Josh is thinking, and the board will figure out what it's going to do about that. So I just want to your best idea about, you've been a contractor a long time, you know how this goes. So you're thinking a week in the spring,
Yeah,
and then probably another week
late
sometime
August.
during the latter part of the summer
Yeah.
to bring in additional topsoil.
Yeah, if it's needed.
And the total, as I understand it,
Yes,
between the two
yes,
is 1,000 cubic yards.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think it was 72 trips,
yeah.
dump truck trips to haul that out. To haul it in and to haul it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And screening would occur. We'll assume these 2 separate 1-week periods. Screening would occur at both of those.
Yes,
time
because
periods?
you'd be doing it in the spring to get a pile up and then you
Sure.
do it before winter and spring,
All right.
fall weather sets in.
All right, so and you've got a screener on site? Do you have a
No,
screener?
I
You
rent a
borrow,
screener.
you rent a screener? Okay. And so for each of those 1-week hauling periods, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
how much screening would be needed, and like, would it be 1 day's worth at the end, or how would you propose to do that?
Usually it's 2 or 3 days we screen solid.
During that hauling week? Would
Yeah,
there be
during the week.
during
Yeah.
that, I mean, during
Yeah,
the
so
during the
for
hauling
2
period?
weeks, you're gonna do 2 or 3 days, give or take. In the spring, and then 2 or 3 days
Right, but would the,
fall.
I get that. What I'm specifically asking or trying to get a handle on
Yeah.
is, would the screening be occurring during the 1 week hauling period? Would you wait till it all comes in before you screen, or would you propose to be doing it during that week period while stock is coming in?
During,
well, I would say there's the possibility that it could be following if the topsoil say is wet and you
Yeah.
want to let it dry.
Sure.
yes, yeah.
Right, but you wouldn't necessarily wait until all the hauling is done in order to start
Right,
screening.
exactly.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anything further to add, Josh or Ryan or RSG guys, about traffic trips? Okay, Jim, do you have any questions?
Yes,
Go ahead.
on the last point, is the record clear? The applicant is stipulating a permanent condition that limits using trucks to bring in topsoil to 2 separate 5-day weeks. Is that a stipulation?
No, we're going to let the board decide what that's, the generality, what we're proposing.
Okay, so you won't stipulate to that. That's what I'm hearing
For now.
for now.
Well,
You expecting more hearings in this?
I don't know what the board, may be a little presumptuous.
If they don't stipulate to it, then we're gonna brief it. If they're willing to stipulate, then we can avoid briefing on that. So it's important to know.
If they don't want to commit at this point, that's their call. The board's gonna do what it's gonna do, and if there's a permit granted with conditions, and like the conditions, you'll have to appeal it. If you don't appeal it, then you're subject to the conditions. That's that's the way it works. So
I
it's
think- I
always
think that-
helpful.
I think that's fair.
Well-
We're gonna set conditions, but Mr. Dumont is correct. If you don't want to stipulate and you're just gonna leave it in our hands, as representing objectors, he certainly has the right to give his opinion of what the stipulation should be. And so when he says he's gonna brief it, I would appreciate him doing that. If you're, so that's fair.
Absolutely, that's fair. So, anything further, Jim?
Yes, a lot more.
I figured.
Before we move on, could I just ask a quick question?
Of whom?
Well, the room, really, I'm just noticing the conversations about topsoil, specifically topsoil, but is there no gravel or sand to be hauled in and out of this site?
Josh?
No, you can't legally haul gravel,
No.
sand out of your own.
No, there was gravel extracted to build the driveway.
Yeah.
But there's no
It should be
gravel
done, yeah.
or sand extraction.
Well, I have questions about that.
Sure, but there's no, the permit application doesn't have anything to do with sand and gravel
Well,
extraction.
since John raised it, why don't we ask Mr. Masterson that the purpose of the screening
Mhm.
is to remove rocks and other objects from the topsoil, right? And either they're gonna stay on your property forever, or you're gonna be loading them into trucks and taking them offsite, right?
I won't take them off site.
So everything that's screened out of the topsoil, you're gonna keep on the site forever.
Yeah.
Okay, and you willing to stipulate to that, so we don't
Yeah.
have to brief that?
So the answer to my question is, we're only talking about topsoil. There's not sand or gravel going in and out of this site as part of various excavations and projects.
Correct.
Josh says yes, so we're not, so the record's clear, their applicant is not proposing to accumulate on site for use off-site, sand and gravel, just topsoil, which needs to,
Can't,
yeah, no, I get,
can't.
yeah. Right, I mean,
I'm not a gravel pit.
granted, but
Okay, well, it's good to clear that up.
yeah, yep,
Thank you.
So, should I proceed?
sure, keep
Well,
going.
I have a bunch of exhibits.
Okay,
They're in the pile. It's probably all stuff you've seen before. But,
maybe, if are they from this?
Ted. You, this is Roger. Our exhibit 1 is the zoning permit application.
Chris, does that say they received March? Is that a 3? Is that March 1?
I have to look at it. Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm trying to read my own handwriting.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, there's.
I believe it was May 1.
I think that's a 5.
Most of that's a 5.
Any guess, Josh, when the application was submitted? Is that March 1 or May 1? Right? Any guess?
The report?
No, when the application was submitted. You're having trouble reading the date. Is it May? Do you think it's May or do you think it's?
Yeah,
May?
with the report. It says May 1st, 2023.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay,
On my handwriting now.
It is mine.
So, Mr. Augustine, turn to the report that's attached to the handwritten document. It says conditional use application prepared by Greg McKinney. You go to page number 3 of the McKinney report. So it's section 355, general criteria for review.
let me get there, Jim. You're on page 3.
Page number 3.
Okay, what number?
Paragraph number 3.
3. Okay, I'm there.
It states the project is estimated to make a maximum of 100 trips per day. Mr. Augustine, do you see that?
Yeah.
Were you aware of that when you wrote your report?
No,
Yeah,
Jim,
but Mr. McKinney, I'm not asking you questions, I'm asking the witness questions.
okay, and we retained this witness here after this application
Okay,
has been put together. So the latest information that's presented is what's on the table right now.
okay, so you're saying,
His report that you requested is on the table right now.
yeah, that's right.
So this is irrelevant.
Okay, stop telling us and him what's relevant and is irrelevant. It's a legitimate question. If you've revised the application to something less in the interim, that's fine,
Sure.
but that's important to get out. But stop telling people what's relevant and not. Just answer the questions.
First question?
Had you read Mr. McKinney's report that's in front of you as our exhibit 1, where it states the project is estimated to make a maximum of 100 trips per day.
Yeah, I did not read this.
Okay, so is the current proposal? Tell us what the current proposal on maximum trips per day is, so we're clear if it's something less than 100 trips a day, and if that's revised, that's fine. Let's just be clear.
That's referenced in the decent report.
Okay, so let's say it now.
So we have 15 trips per day.
But the maximum trips, because this paragraph 3 talks about maximum, and the maximum in these heavy week periods is 80 trips, is that right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, 15 is an average.
And didn't that 15 include 12 pickup trucks and 3 dump trucks?
Correct.
So should that not be stipulated here?
it's
Rather
in
than
there,
just-
it's in the
Rather
report.
than just 15 trips?
It's in the report.
Okay.
The pickup trucks are workers,
Mhm.
and well, Josh has trucks too, pickup trucks too, but some of his workers come to the site, right?
So
In all Vermont, contracting guys drive pickup trucks. It's Vermont law.
they all drive Saabs.
Yeah.
Saabs and Volvos.
All right, so we're clear on that, I think.
Are we clear that the application is now for a maximum of how many trips per day?
It's an average, right?
And I'm not asking for the average. The application says maximum. What is? So then the application is now for a maximum of 80 trips per day
in the heavy weeks, right?
Yes,
at any time. The maximum is the maximum.
yes.
Sure,
Okay.
but it's projected to occur during those heavy week periods. The other days, the non-topsoil accumulation days, it's gonna be 15. On average, right? Yes, Josh,
Yes,
Greg? Yes,
Yes.
good.
So, Mr. Augustine, how do you think the zoning board, the zoning administrator will know whether the average that you talk about will be complied with?
Don't have an answer for that question.
Mr. Dickinson, how would you propose?
Well, it would have to be a log you'd keep a log of their activity on the site. Trucks.
Is that pretty standard practice?
Somewhat, in some cases, yes, that's been used.
And Mr. Dickinson, could that also be used to enforce a maximum per day? The law?
Yes.
So we'll be briefing that we think that should be a permit condition, that the
Sure.
log be kept. Now I want to talk about intersections, site distance and stopping site distance.
Okay.
Mr. Augustine, are you familiar with B71?
No, I'm not.
You're not. Roger? Yeah, I know Roger is. Roger probably has it memorized.
Roger may have written it. Who knows?
Roger may have written it. Did you write it, Roger?
Hey, Tom just dropped off for whatever reason, just so you know.
Okay,
He hopefully will rejoin us.
okay,
You didn't,
all right, so 7:40, Tom's ducked off for a minute. If you can note the time when he comes back in, so to help him zero in on what he might have missed in the record.
sounds good.
Okay,
Thanks you. Roger, can you tell us what B71 is?
Yeah, there's actually now two B71s. B71A for residential driveways and a B71B for commercial driveways. Both have the same site distances, basically.
And they both have the same intersection site distance.
Yes,
And at 35 miles per hour, it's 390 feet, correct?
that's correct.
Tom has rejoined.
And tell us who publishes B71A and B71B.
That is a Vermont Agency of Transportation standard drawing.
And they publish it as a road safety standard, correct?
Yes.
so I've got a question about that, Roger. So select board, with the advice of the road commissioner, grants highway access permits and strikes, and I don't know off the top of my head what they use, but I'm pretty sure they don't use 390 feet. But maybe they do. Is there a different town standard as for the strike distance based on miles per hour, or
No,
If you know,
not that
you don't
I'm
know.
aware of.
okay?
Towns, if they have a standard, reference the Vermont Agency of Transportation.
I can answer that a little bit if you want, Kevin.
Sure, what's your thought, Jim?
Because I've worked with 19 VSA section 1111.
Me too.
And it's a citation that's easy to remember because it's 1111. Whether it's at the state transportation board level or at the town level, the statute doesn't reference any standards. And so some towns don't have any standards at all.
No, I know, but my thought was in Bristol has, at least in the past, done something lesser, but I wasn't sure what that was, if you had seen anything. Not that it would be binding on us, but every driveway gets a highway access permit. Did you have to get a permit here, Josh, or was there already a driveway?
already driveway.
There was already a driveway. Any sense of how long that's driveway's been there? Ages?
Yeah,
A lot.
Yeah, okay, so it might
Longer than any residential.
predate any highway access permit from the town. I don't know how long we've actually been requiring permits for that in Bristol.
Is there a difference between a driveway and like a logging road access or something like that?
No. This is a driveway or driveway slash interest. It's a highway access is highway access. If this access might predate, might go back decades for all we know, but anyway.
But it's been a greatly improved intersection, right? I mean, it's been built out. It wasn't as it is now, right?
Don't know. But this, do you have further questions on the standard? Go ahead. So sorry for the diversion, but that was worth asking, although none of us know. Go ahead.
Roger, you distinguish between vehicles exiting the driveway and turning left and vehicles exiting the driveway and turning right in your brief testimony earlier today. But B71 doesn't make that distinction, does it?
No, B71 applies those distances to both, and which is what we've done here as well, both directions.
Sorry, and so I want to make sure that we are clear in direction. So if we say left, we mean north, right, on Lower Notch Road, and if coming out of the driveway, you're turning right, you're heading south on Lower Notch Road.
So if you're in a large vehicle or a small vehicle turning left, it's important not to collide with the southbound vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And just as it's important, if you're turning right, not to collide with a northbound vehicle or a southbound vehicle. Well, let me start over. Lousy question.
Boy, I hope
When
you
you're
hit the
turning-
northbound vehicle.
When you're turning north, you're turning south, you still have to avoid collisions with cars coming from either direction.
Yes, in most cases, if you're turning right, heading to the south, obviously unless you're turning so wide that you go into the opposite lane, assuming that you stay in your lane, you're really only concerned with southbound traffic on Lower Notch Road.
Have you been to the site, Roger?
Yes,
Is there a painted yellow line?
no.
Is there pavement?
To the south, there's pavement at the driveway.
And to the north, is there pavement?
It ends north to the north at the driveway, and turns to gravel.
So,
What,
go ahead.
can I jump in?
Yeah.
So the travel way of the road itself, you say varies 22 to 24 feet, is that right?
Roughly 2022.
Yeah, okay, so some of these trucks are gonna be hauling a lowboy trailer with equipment. There's no way they're gonna be able to stay on the south side, the west side. No. On their side. On the near side of the middle.
And that is correct, and so they will need to make sure there's no traffic coming in both directions.
Pickup truck should be okay, but trucks with trailers, well, even a dump truck, a 14-yard dump truck, that's pretty big.
Would somebody mind putting C10 back up on the screen?
C10,
Or C10, whatever it is.
we had C1.0 before.
Thank you. Roger, looking at this. Is it from this exhibit, C10, is it possible to tell whether the town right away, assuming it's 3 rods, will encompass the vegetation that interferes with the 390-foot stopping site distance, the intersection site distance? Just from this exhibit, can you answer that question?
But not to the south. I can't, to the north. I believe that we can, make that determination. That, the clearing that would be required can be accomplished within the town right of way.
So if I'm reading this exhibit right, we've got 818.4 feet of property frontage. And the driveway is pretty darn close to the property line, so you've got more than 390 feet available of property frontage before you get to the northern property line, right?
So whether it's the town right of way or it's the Masterson land, it's available,
Yes.
but we don't know that looking south, do we?
No, my recollection is that it will be doable, but I can't ascertain that from this exhibit.
To the south, there is just one like little push like in the way, and that is if you're 15 feet back from the driveway.
Which you must be for the computation.
Correct.
All right, so you've calculated 226 feet of we'll call it visibility, looking to the south from the driveway to the south, and 150 feet to the north. So testimony from Roger is that 390 feet can be obtained to the north. You need you need 100 feet for minimum stopping distance, 390 feet for the recommended site distance. So you need another 14 feet to the south from the driveway for the minimum safe stopping distance. Can you offer an opinion on whether you've got 14 feet to the south? I'm sorry, 24 feet to the south to get to 250.
It'll go much further once that point. And to be clear, when I was out there taking that measurement, I'm looking at like just a little rod from that distance away, and that's when I can see it.
I don't know what you mean.
When I did the test for this, I walk it along the line. I put a point 15 feet away from the driveway or from the edge of the road in the driveway and walk until I can't see it anymore.
Okay,
And so it's just a point sitting at that. So
but do you walk down the travel way of the road?
yes.
Okay, all right.
And so again, a vehicle will be much easier to see than what I was looking at, especially once
Yeah,
this
and so
bush and
so
tree is just.
so at what point when you walk south, how many lineal feet is it before you couldn't see the stake anymore?
It was 226
That's
feet.
okay, that's 226. Okay.
Yeah,
And so you're not able to offer an opinion whether you can get a site distance of 390 feet south?
I'm
No.
very confident that you can.
Okay,
Can we follow up on that?
absolutely.
Roger, the standards require that the distance be visible from the height of a standard driver sitting in the driver's seat, correct? And that's what,
3.5 feet.
3.5 feet? And Mr. Augustine, you're a lot taller than I am. How tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
6'2". Yeah,
I hate them, don't you?
yeah. I know what sport you're really good at.
Could be volleyball too.
Probably a lot of sports. Did you measure it from 3.5 feet or from your standing height?
It was 3.5 feet from the pole in the driveway, and then when I was 226 feet down, I was I ducked down.
You ducked down?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, and you're gonna have something second.
What's that?
You're gonna have some.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot more on sound.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anything, well, let's, before you guys depart, anything else from the board on traffic? We're gonna do sound next.
Not at the moment.
We good? Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Okay, who's gonna talk sound?
You got.
Oh, Mr. Duncan,
Yes, sir.
you're a sound man?
I'm the sound guy. And
All right, you got
here with you tonight.
Can you raise your right hand? Did you participate in the swearing in prior? No, okay.
I did not. I'm ready to do it.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give before this development review board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, can you walk us through the sound study, please? Ryan, chip in wherever you need.
Sure. So my name is Eddie Duncan. I am a senior director at RSG and a board certified noise control engineer. We're a company headquartered in White River Junction, Vermont. That's where I'm coming from today. Made it as far as Killington tonight before traffic was at a standstill due to the snowstorm, due to some accident on the road. So turned back around and I'm here with you virtually. I've been practicing acoustics for about 20 years, most of that experience within the state of Vermont, but also doing project work around the country. So what I'd like to do tonight is provide an overview of the study that we did and tell you a little bit about essentially some sound level monitoring that we did. Those are measurements, and sound propagation modeling that we did. Those are calculations or predictions of sound levels, and provide some quantification to the sound that will be created as a result of the proposed project.
Mr. Duncan, I just want to ask you, as you move along here, when you get to a graphic or a map, if you could just call it out so Chris will be able to get it up on the screen for everybody.
For sure, yeah, I can certainly do that.
Thanks.
So I imagine that this board doesn't get a lot of noise studies before it. So I just want to briefly provide a general overview of what a noise study entails. We typically go through about 4 to 5 phases when we're doing a noise assessment. The first is a discovery phase where we're really learning about where the project's located, what are the potential sound sources, when and where will they operate, what's the applicable sound standard, that type of thing. So that's kind of the discovery phase that we go through. A lot of it is much of the information that you gather in the application. And then we conduct sound measurements. Those are physical measurements at the site with sound level meters. And in this case, we measured both background sound levels at the site and also operational sound levels from some of the proposed equipment operating. The third phase that we go through in a noise study is modeling. That's a calculation or a prediction. Those words are very similar. I recognize monitoring and modeling, but I just want to be clear up front. Monitoring is a physical measurement. Modeling is a calculation. So just so that we're clear in each of our minds what I'm talking about when I say monitoring versus modeling. The fourth phase that we go through is mitigation planning, so trying to reduce potential impacts from the proposed project. And then finally, the last phase is reporting, which you have a noise report before you. I'm not sure what the exhibit number is there for you, but there is a noise assessment from November of 2023.
Okay, we don't have them numbered, but we'll just note it as that exhibit.
Very good. So what I'd like to do is briefly walk through the report with you. It's going to be about 20 minutes to walk through that.
That's a good idea. We haven't had it's been most of the board hasn't had a noise study in a case yet. I think it's probably been since the Lathrop gravel permits that we've had to deal with it. So it'd be helpful for you to assume that this is new for many of us.
Very good. So I'd like to start with section 2 on page 2. If you want to go there, this is a section that provides an overview of the project area and the operations. And so I'll wait till you get there and then we'll continue. Well, let's stop at this map here on figure 1. This will be a good backdrop for this. So yeah, figure 1 on page 2. So in this figure, we can see the proposed site. We see the property line is outlined there by the white dash line. We note the location of the contractor yard. The area for topsoil storage is noted by the brown polygon. The access road is clearly visible in the aerial photography. And we also show the location of 3 sound monitors that I'll refer to later in the report and as I present this. And then we also can see these orange dots throughout the area. Those are all residences that are identified through the Vermont E911 database. And those are the same residences that we use in the modeling portion of the study. So the proposed operation that we are considering here in the noise assessment is really 2 separate areas. There's the contractor yard, and in the contractor yard, the sound there is for the most part loading and unloading equipment and vehicles coming and going. And so we'll talk about it here in a little bit. In modeling, we modeled just that, and that is, vehicles being loaded and unloaded in the contractor yard. The other part of the proposed operation is this topsoil storage area. And in the topsoil storage area, I think we just talked about these details here. It's the same details we had with the noise study, and that is that it would involve delivery of approximately 1,000 cubic yards delivered over the period of a few days. And as you heard just a little bit ago for the traffic testimony, it's a few days over 2 separate weeks during the year. It would also involve processing and screening for approximately a week per year, and that is split between those 2 periods where topsoil is coming in. And then the other element that creates sound in the topsoil storage area is trucks being loaded as topsoil is taken out of the site periodically. So those are kind of the 3 events that would create sound down in that area: unloading of material, screening, and then loading it back up to go out. So if we could go to the next section, section 3, the next page essentially says what I just gave testimony to. So, but if we could go to section 3, we talk about the applicable sound level standards. I'm going to focus this evening on the local standards, although I'm happy to answer questions about the state standards if there is interest in that. The local standard here in Bristol is what we would put in the category of a qualitative standard. Typically, we have 3 types of standards. There's qualitative, and then, or 2 main types, qualitative and then quantitative. And if we have a quantitative standard, it's usually either absolute or relative. Absolute would be you shall not exceed X, and relative is you should not exceed more than X above background. And so this is on the qualitative side of things, but there is some clear language here that talks about excessive and incompatible with reasonable use of adjacent properties. And so we have a few ways to evaluate this. One is
Eddie, you want to be Mr. Duncan or Eddie?
you can, it does not matter to me.
All right, my father was Eddie. I'm going with Eddie.
Eddie's fine.
All right.
Edward.
So when you're talking about the town standard, you're talking about section 751, right?
I believe it's section 810 of the zoning ordinance. Unless I'm looking at a different version here, but according to the noise report, it's section 810 of the zoning ordinance.
That's
flood hazard.
That's conditional use review, section 810.
Section 8 is flood hazard.
Well, no, the applicable section number in the current zoning ordinance is 751, and it breaks out 2 different standards. One applies to residential districts, the high density residential and village residential, and so this property is neither. And so other than that, the 751 says No noise which is excessive at the property line represents a significant increase in noise levels in the vicinity of the development and is compatible with a reasonable use of the surrounding area shall be permitted. Is that the standard you were talking about?
That is the standard that I am speaking about and is identified here in the report, although
Okay.
it sounds
so
like we
that's-
may be referring to a different version of the zoning ordinance, and so we reference a different section.
Yeah, so, okay, so just so the record's clear, the noise section is 751, but the text that I just read is what you were evaluating.
Yes, I can't confirm that it's word for word, but it looks pretty close to me.
Well, it's certainly qualitative.
But
rather than quantitative.
from that language, we pull out a couple things. One is it says or represents a significant increase in noise levels. So that seems to point to that there should be a comparison of the proposed sound levels with the existing sound levels at the site. So while it's qualitative language, it does kind of indicate what type of analysis or comparison should be taking place. The other component that I think sticks out there is the compatibility portion of it. And while it doesn't set a limit specifically for compatibility, we do have American National Standard Institute guidelines for land use compatibility and sound levels. And so we actually talk about that down below in section 3.3 as kind of guidance for this idea of compatibility in the local standard. So if we could go down to 3.3, I can speak briefly about that. So the American National Standard Institute has a standard, it's called ANSI S 12.9 Part 5, and it speaks to land use compatibility and sound levels. And in that standard, there's a decent amount in that standard, but for the sake of time, it speaks to specific sound levels that would be considered compatible or marginally compatible with residential areas. So 55 dBA is considered to be compatible, and 60 dBA is considered to be marginally compatible. The thing that's important to note here is that this is a day-night level, which is the average over the day and nighttime periods with a penalty applied to nighttime sound. That penalty applied to nighttime sound doesn't really apply to this project because there's no nighttime sounds proposed as part of this project. But that's just something to note, that's the specific metric that they're using in that standard. So
Eddie, give me the compatible numeric level and the marginally compatible once again, please.
Yeah, 55 dBA.
Yeah.
And again, that's a DNL. And then marginally compatible is 60 dBA, and that is also a DNL.
And remind us what DML means.
Day-night level.
Got it. Thank you.
So in this study going forward, we look at the maximum sound level from a variety of sources. We look at the what's called an LEQ, or in layman's terms, you can think of it as an average sound level. And we also look at that DNL because that's what the ANSI standard is using. And so that's why we talk about a few different metrics in this report. And tonight I'll focus on that comparison of the background sound levels with the proposed sound levels and the DNL that speaks to the compatibility. So if we could go to section 4, to the monitoring section, we'll talk a little bit about the background sound level monitoring that we did. So we conducted approximately 10 days of background sound level monitoring in September of 2023. And those were at 3 locations that we saw on the map in figure 1. Actually, why don't we go back up to the map in figure 1 just to highlight those locations.
Hold up. Okay. Got it.
So those 3 locations include the topsoil storage monitor, and this is located northeast of the topsoil storage area, between the topsoil storage area and the property line next to the closest residence in that area. And then to the south, there's the access road monitor, It was located at the corner of the access road, just before it turns north on the property, and it is adjacent to the closest property line to the south, where the residences are located along Vincent Drive. And then there's the contractor yard monitor, which is representative of a location that would be set back further from Lower Notch Road than the other two. But it also served as a control monitor. At the time, we weren't sure if there would be activities occurring in the contractor yard or not, but we wanted to make sure that if there were, we were able to quantify that from that monitor to see how it affected the other monitors. We have those three monitors that are reported on in section 4 of the report. So if we could go back down to there. The monitoring was conducted with to standards. So ANSI class 1 sound level meters that are highly accurate. They were calibrated before and after the monitoring period. We used hydrophobic windscreens, partially to protect the monitors from the microphones from any potential rain, but also to prevent pseudo noise from the wind blowing over the microphone. We also measured wind speed at 2 of the monitor locations to make sure that we weren't measuring sound levels in high wind speeds, which would artificially raise the sound level.
Which locations did you measure wind speed?
That is at the access road monitor and the contractor yard monitor.
Okay. Yeah, I see that now in the report. Thanks.
Yep. Well, during the monitoring period, though, we actually ended up not having any periods above 5 meters per second, which is that cutoff for data that should be excluded from the data set. So while we monitored wind speed, it wasn't windy during the monitoring period, so we didn't have to worry about that causing extraneous noise.
Okay.
So the results are presented in section 4.3 on page 10. And it's presented in a few different ways here, of course, textually in the paragraphs, but table 1 provides an overall summary of each of those monitors. And then we also have a time history graph in each of the monitors. So I'm going to focus on table 1 here. It's the most easily digestible here, I think, for all of us. What we can see from table 1 is that generally background sound levels are fairly consistent across the entire site. It really doesn't vary that much. You might get a little more sound from vehicle pass-bys down at the access road where you're closer to, and the topsoil storage monitor where you're closer to Lower Notch Road there. But generally speaking, it's very similar across the site. So the daytime average sound level was 39 decibels. 40 up at the contractor yard, but you can't hear the difference between 39 and 40. So we're just going to call the background sound level at the site 39.
Eddie, hold up.
Yep.
So this would be a good place, since we have this table in front of us, for you to explain the row of the units across the LEQ, L90, L50, L10.
Sure. So
Lmax.
if anyone wants to take a deeper dive into this in their own time, there is a lot of information about this in one of the appendix. There is a noise primer, but to provide an overview of it now, the LEQ is the equivalent continuous sound level, which from a layman's perspective, you can think of that as an average sound level. The L90 is the quietest 10% of the time, or put it a different way, it's the sound level that is exceeded 90% of the time. The L50 is simply the median sound level. That is 50% of the time sound levels were less than that number, and 50% of the time they were greater than that number. The L10 is the highest or loudest 10% of the time. And then the Lmax is the maximum sound level, excuse me, at any given second. So that has to be provided in a range because the maximum sound level varies every second. And there are descriptors of each of those metrics and a nice graph in one of the appendix that kind of show the difference between those metrics if anyone's interested. I think what's most important here for us to focus on are two values, and that is the LEQ and the Lmax range. And for our purposes, the project doesn't really plan to operate at night. We can kind of ignore the right half of that table altogether. That is, background sound levels at night probably don't really matter for our analysis purposes here.
Well,
So-
let's clarify what is meant by night. Is it 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or are you actually talking when it's dark?
It's defined right above the table here. So daytime is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and nighttime is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Got it.
Just a
Oh,
note,
I see it. No, I see it. Yep.
the applicant is asking for 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 6 days a week, if I recall. Operating hours.
Yeah, so with that, these nighttime sound levels may matter to some extent, but we also show it in the time history results in graphical format below this. So if we wanted to hone in on that 6 a.m. time period, we could take a look at that. So in summary of these levels, the average sound level during the day is 39 across the site. Of course, that's going to vary over any 10-minute period, but the average over the course of the day is 39. And then the maximum sound levels at each of these sites generally range between 35 and 70. There's a few outliers above 70, but the maximum sound levels vary between that range, 35 to 70 decibels. And that could be.
Excuse me, what was the highest decibel reading that you recorded?
Sorry, I missed that.
What was the highest decibel recorded?
79.
Okay.
Yep. And those maximum sound levels come from a variety of things. You can have an aircraft flying over. There were a number that flew over during our site visit just over the course of a few hours while we were setting up the monitors. You could have a vehicle drive by on one of the roads. You could have crows stop by in a tree and start cawing for a little while. There's a variety of things that could cause those maximum sound levels to occur.
Eddie, what's your explanation? Granted, the numbers aren't very different, but I'm surprised to see the LEQ a little bit higher in their nighttime sound.
Yeah, so the nighttime LEQ is a little higher due to biogenic sound. So you'll have insect sound or bird sound at night, or not bird sound, excuse me, peepers and things of that nature that would occur during the month of September. And so that will actually cause elevated sound levels at night.
Okay.
Of course, those things would not be present in the winter months. So background sound levels at night and during the winter months would be approximately 10 decibels quieter than this.
Okay, thanks.
So in addition to this background sound level monitoring, we also did tests on the day that we set up the equipment, September 8th. And I think the one that I'd like to highlight here is in the topsoil storage area, the topsoil storage monitor. We had the applicant load and unload material right in that area with a dump truck, a loader, and an excavator operating. And that also included the tailgate hitting on the truck. And with that, during those operations, the average sound levels at that closest monitor, the topsoil storage monitor, was between 45 and 49 decibels. And the maximum that occurred at that monitor was 63 to 74. And that was due to unloading the material from the dump truck. So that's the background monitoring. There's more that we could go into if there are questions.
So those numbers are different than what's in table 1 because table 1 wasn't recording measurements during the test.
No, table 1 was including measurements during the test, but it was, if you scroll back up to table 1 here at the topsoil storage monitor, we're only including the background sound levels in table 1. So while it was recording during the
Got it.
test, we excluded those test values from table 1.
Got it. Thank you.
So let's go to the following section, section 5. These are time history graphs that we're scrolling past here. And so section 5 talks about the projected sound levels from the proposed site. So we took those tests that we did at the site and we quantified the sound emissions of those operations. And then what we're able to do is build a 3-dimensional computer model, and we put those sound emissions into that 3-dimensional computer model. That computer model uses a software package called CADNA-A. The important part about that, though, is that it implements an international standard. The international standard is ISO 9613-2. This is an internationally accepted, acoustical model for calculating sound propagation outdoors. It's used across the state by other local boards, Act 250 district commissions, the environmental court, the Supreme Court has even relied upon it, and it's used all around the United States. And so that's the model that we use to calculate sound emissions and take those sound emissions and essentially propagate or spread them throughout the surrounding area so that we could calculate what the sound level would be at all of the property lines and all of the nearby residences. And so that's what this does. And we did that for a number of scenarios, which are on the next page here.
Can you, before you move on, Eddie, can you explain the spectral ground attenuation, where your G is equal to 0.5 in the contractor yard and equal to 1 elsewhere, and what that means and why?
Yeah, so there's a number of factors that go into the model. Spectral ground attenuation is one of them. This affects how sound is interacting with the ground. So most of the sound that one hears is the direct sound, but some of the sound that one hears is a reflection off the ground near the receptor. And so the spectral ground attenuation is taking into account essentially the porosity of the ground. And so soft forest and fields and snow and things of that nature are considered a ground factor of 1. Pavement and bodies of water would be considered a ground factor of 0. In this case, the contractor yard is a shore pack material. We know from other sites that use this type of material that appropriate ground factor used for that is around 0.5.
Okay.
And there are more model input information provided in Appendix B. So what we ended up doing is calculating the sound level throughout the project area over about a 4 square mile area. We included 132 residences in the model, again, from the Vermont E911 database. And we ended up modeling 5 different scenarios. And those are shown here on this page, which I believe is page 15, section 5.2.
Yes.
Yep.
So these scenarios are broken down by area. Scenario 1 is up in the contractor yard. Scenario 2 through 5 is in the topsoil area. And scenarios 6 through 8 are on the access road. Scenario 1 is unloading and loading of equipment from a trailer in the contractor yard. It's literally the cover photo to the entire report, and that is a tracked excavator coming off of a trailer and then pulling back up onto the trailer. So that's the sound level from scenario 1. Scenario 2 is unloading a dump truck in the topsoil storage area, and that includes using the tailgate to hit the truck bed.
What was the material? Was it topsoil?
It was topsoil.
Yep.
Scenario 3 is screening topsoil in the topsoil storage area. Scenario 4 is loading topsoil into a dump truck with a loader at the topsoil storage area. Scenario 5 is the same as scenario 4, except it's using an excavator to do the loading instead of a loader. And then scenarios 6 through 8 are a dump truck driving on the access road at different locations. So scenario 6 is the southern leg of the access road near Vincent Drive. Scenario 7 is the northern section of the access road, closer to the northern residences up in that area. And scenario 8 is at the end of the access road as it's pulling out onto the road there. So those are the scenarios that we modeled. The results are provided in section 5.3. And we do that in a few different formats. One are map formats that show sound level ISO lines. Let's just look at an example of that real quick on the following page after this.
So you want figure 8, Eddie?
Yes, figure 8. Thank you. So this is just one of there are multiple maps for each of those scenarios. This is one example. The colored lines represent sound level, going from dark purple near the source, near the middle of the map, out to a dark and light blue colors on the outside of the map. The purple line near the center of the map represents 70 decibels, all the way out to the light blue line on the outside of the map representing 30 decibels. There are a variety of dashed gray lines on the map. Those dashed gray lines represent 1 decibel intervals. So you can literally look anywhere on the map and look to see what the sound level is in a certain area. But in addition to those lines, we also have orange boxes over top of each of the residential locations. And there's a number on top of each of those boxes. That number is the projected sound level at those locations. So you don't have to try and figure it out from the ISO lines. You can just look at those boxes to figure out what the sound level is at a given location. And then for each of these scenarios, we modeled both the maximum sound level, which is what's shown here in figure 8, and the LEQ, or the average sound level, which is in figure 9 below this, but in other figures for other scenarios as well.
So the number in the boxes for the residences, is that L max or is that?
It depends on which map. It depends on which map you're looking at. So
I'm
figure
looking at 8. I'm still looking at 8.
Yep. So in figure 8, in the caption, it says that this is the L max. So all of those numbers in the boxes are the maximum sound levels for that scenario.
Projected at the individual residences.
At the individual residences, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And then in figure 9, that is it says in the caption for figure 9 that is the LEQ. Again, it's like the average sound level. So the boxes in that map are representing the LEQ, or the average. In addition to this format for the model results, we also provide all the model results for all scenarios in tabular format in the last appendix of the report. And those can be looked up by street address. So if someone says, I live at 123 Lower Notch Road, you can look up what's the sound levels at 123 Lower Notch Road for all of these different scenarios.
Okay, so that's pages.
That is
Appendix C. That's Appendix C.
Appendix C. So that starts on
Yep,
page
48.
48.
48.
Yep.
48 through 52. Okay, thank you.
So I briefly, rather than go through each map, we also provide a textual description for each scenario. What I'd like to do is just kind of verbally walk you through each scenario and talk about the highest sound level from each scenario. We'll just focus in on that worst case. So if we go to scenario 1, which is on
Page 16, is that the one you would like?
Yeah, let me, yes, page 16, thank you. So in scenario 1, the highest sound levels occur at Sherman's Lane, which is to the southwest of the site. And in that case, the maximum sound level is 47 decibels and the LEQ is 35 decibels. For scenario 2, if we scroll down to Page 19. Again, scenario 2 is unloading topsoil in the topsoil storage area. The maximum sound level occur at two different residences, 2262 and 2365 Lower Notch Road. Those are the closest residences to the north and to the east of the topsoil storage area. And in that case, the maximum sound level is 62, and the LEQ, or the average sound level during those operations, is 48.
Question.
And that scenario did include the banging of the door when it closes, as I recollect.
Yes, it did.
So presumably that is the single highest event in the sound.
That's correct. That's the loudest source in the model.
Got it. Thanks.
That was my question too. Thanks.
Scenario 3 is screening in the topsoil storage area. And it happens at the same two residences we just referenced. In this case, the maximum is 49 and the average is 48. And the reason for that is the sound levels from the screener are fairly constant, particularly when you're screening topsoil. Scenario 4 is loading a dump truck with a loader with topsoil. Again, the highest sound levels occur at those same two residences near the topsoil storage area. And in that case, the maximum is 51 and the average is 37. Scenario 5 is the same thing as scenario 4, except we're using an excavator to load the dump truck. And in that case, the maximum sound level is 44 and the average is 33 at the worst case location there, which again is 2262 Lower Notch Road. And then if we can scroll down to page 29, we have scenarios 6, 7, and 8, which are the truck on the access road. The truck on the access road is modeled at the worst case locations for the respective residences closest to those areas. So we actually don't have the LEQ or the average sound level from that truck. We just have the maximum shown here. So the maximum sound level when a truck is on the southern access drive is at 98 Vincent Drive, and that's 61. For scenario 7, when a truck is on the northern section of the road heading up to the contractor yard, the maximum sound level would occur at 308 Many Waters Road, and that is 43 decibels. And for scenario 8, that's when a truck would be pulling out onto Lower Notch Road. The highest sound level occurs at 2610 Lower Notch Road, and that is 62 decibels. So those are the maximum and the average sound levels from these various scenarios. What we did then is took those results and calculated the day-night level so that we have something to compare to that ANSI standard that we were talking about earlier. And in doing that, we also calculated the existing day-night level without the operation altogether, so we could have a comparison of what's the existing DNL and what's the potential future DNL. And so on the following, on page 32 and 33, we talk about this analysis. And this includes 72 truck trips to the storage area, 72 trucks being loaded with material, 72 trucks being unloaded with material, and a screener operating for 5 days. And with all of that operating, the DNL was 40, let me make sure I get the number right here, was 48 decibels. So that's the future DNL, but the existing DNL is 48 as well. And so what this shows is that the DNL doesn't actually change as a result of the operation. And the reason for that is the infrequency of the events at the site. That is, much of the time, much of the year, it is just a storage area for topsoil. And so when we take into account these times of heavier usage, it doesn't change the DNL because those are only occurring fairly infrequently relative to the time period over which the DNL is calculated. In fact, the DNL of just the operation itself, if we ignore background sound levels, is between 10 and 28 decibels. And so
You mean for the loading and unloading and of the trucks?
the truck pass-bys, the loading, the unloading, and the screener, if we take all of that into account, the annual DNL, which is what the ANSI standard uses, of just the operation is 10 to 28 decibels. Now the sound levels are higher when the events are actually occurring, and that's what we talked about previously in the average and maximum model results. But if we're looking at the DNL, which is what we need to compare to the ANSI standard, the sound levels are much lower. Excuse me. So those are the model results. The next section, I'm almost finished here, and then I'm happy to answer questions, as I'm sure there will be some. I'd like to go to the next section, which is section 6, and that is mitigation. We have a number of mitigation recommendations that are listed here, and we also talk about the mitigation that's incorporated into the project. I'm not going to go through each one, but I'm going to highlight some of the key ones here. The first is what's already essentially incorporated into the project, and that is the proposed frequency of use at the site is relatively low. Granted, on those maximum days that we talked about earlier during the traffic study, it could be more intensive on those days, but outside of those days, the actual frequency of use at the site is relatively low, which mitigates the sound levels, throughout the year. We also have recommended that a berm or noise barrier be constructed at the north end of the topsoil storage pile area. And we give details in item 1 on page 34 here about that noise barrier. It's also shown in figure 21 on the following page. That will help reduce sound levels to the north and to the east. Two more mitigation
Excuse me,
measures.
Mr. Duncan, do you have any sense of, when you say help reduce it, how many decibels it will reduce it, or any sense of quantifying that?
Well, it's quantified in the noise model. So the results that we've been talking about incorporate that berm
Okay.
barrier into the model. So the numbers, you don't have to do the math. The math's already been done.
I see. Okay.
But which table do we look at, Eddie, to see the effect, model effect of the berm?
All of them
He's saying
include
it's in here already. He's assuming that they accept that this mitigation is all done.
In all the models?
Yes. So in doing the noise study and talking to Master Assistant Excavating, we've talked about constructing a berm and or barrier on the north end of the topsoil storage area to reduce sound levels from that area. And so that's being incorporated as part of the design.
Right, but is it does the modeling include the hypothetical barrier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We've also said to prevent simultaneous operation of the screener while loading and unloading material. So we understand that the screening may happen in similar time periods to the unloading of material, but we've recommended that the screener not be actively operating during unloading and loading, so that those sound levels from those two operations would not be additive.
I want to jump back to the barrier berm a bit. What material were you considering that to be composed out of? Is it and then what's the cover? Is it seeded, grassed? Is it just sand and rock, or what?
Yeah, so it just has to be an earthen berm. It could be rock that's going to stay there and not be moved. It could be seated earthen berm. From a noise standpoint, if it's blocking that line of sight up to the 12 feet that we've talked about, it will effectively act the same. Where we might have a little more specification is if we're talking about a noise barrier. So an earthen berm will mitigate it, whether it's made of rock or whether it's made of grass and soil, that type of thing. If we're talking about a noise barrier, the specification would be that the noise barrier weigh at least 4 pounds per square foot. That's a surface weight. And it could be a combination of the two. It could be, that you have a 10-foot high berm and then you've got a 2-foot high wall that goes all along the berm there. So it could be a combination of the two. That would be just as effective.
Well, aren't we always talking about with the berm? Isn't it always considered to be a noise barrier here? Isn't that why we're talking about it?
Yes, but when we're talking, they have the same effect from a noise standpoint, a berm and a barrier. But typically when we're talking about a barrier, we're talking about a wall or concrete blocks, and the berm has a wider footprint because it's made of earthen material.
Okay, but the effect is the same on the model.
Yep.
Got it.
And then the last mitigation measure.
I actually have a quick question. So if it's the berm we're talking about, as opposed to like a separate barrier, would the berm be 12 feet tall by 260 feet long?
Yes, the berm would be 12 feet tall and by 260 feet long.
And how wide across does a 12-foot berm have to be to stand up? So what's its base width?
I think it would have to be engineered. That can vary. So it depends on what would come from the engineering for that. It could be a 2-to-1 ratio. It could be a 3-to-1 ratio. That's from a noise standpoint. That's not for me to make that call.
Thank you.
No, I would estimate probably 25 feet wide. 2-on-1 slope.
So it's pointy at the top, it's not flat.
That would figure just a 1 foot flat area if you did a 2-on-1 slope.
That sounds like a whole separate impact. That's quite a large structure. It has visual impact too. Construction impact. I don't see, is that part of this application now?
Well, told when this area was cleared, Josh pushed, when he stumped the property, a lot of this was moved into the area where this berm is proposed. I don't have measurements on what's out there at this current time, but I would guess not much more has to be done to construct a berm to these specifications.
8 foot wide section.
So is this berm a part of the application or isn't it?
Yes, if this is modeled, we need some sort of sound barrier. It's not on, we don't have it on a site plan at this time, but
It is shown in figure 21. The location of it at least is shown. In the noise report.
As barrier or berm.
Yep. From a visual standpoint, let's say that it's an earthen berm. A stockpile storage area is effectively an earthen, like visually a stockpile storage area is an earthen berm, right? So it's made of similar material. So it's from a visual standpoint, and I want to be careful going much further than this because I want to be clear, I'm a noise expert, not a visual expert, but a berm is made of earthen material, a topsoil storage pile is made of earthen material.
Yeah, understood. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the impact of its construction and what have you. So I don't know. I was just trying to figure out if it's part of this application or not.
It is if we were to say so. I mean, since the modeling includes berm or barrier, so I'd say yes.
So there are a number of other mitigation measures here that I'm happy to answer questions about, but a lot of them are just fairly standard things. Like maintaining the existing forest on the parcel to help block line of sight, things of that nature. So if we could go to the next section, section 7, we get to our conclusions. And in that section, I think the key things to highlight here are that on average, parts of the operation like loading and unloading equipment and loading topsoil in trucks produce sound levels that are comparable to existing daytime sound levels. Those sources are relatively not loud. It's activities that cause higher sound levels, such as screening and unloading topsoil, are on average 9 decibels higher than existing sound levels, with maximum sound levels that are similar to other maximums that occur at the site, but it would occur with greater frequency during the shorter time frame that those events are occurring. And then finally, the DNL, which we talked about, remains unchanged. It's 48 now. It's 48 with the proposed operation because of the infrequency of those operations. And that's what I have for a direct presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions about what's in the noise study here.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. Let's start with questions from the board, if any, for Eddie.
Yep.
And then
I have one. I know I'm focused down on one little item, but since it is the single loudest sound that comes off the site, as a noise expert, or maybe it's really a trucking expert, is there any way to mitigate the sound of the dump truck closing, it coming back down?
You don't have a damper or anything that's available, correct?
Josh says no.
Oh, tailgate's tailgate.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm no kind of expert on tailgates, and I wondered if there was any way to mitigate that, to prevent that from happening, since that is the one time when you're starting, you create some fairly loud sound off site.
The best way to mitigate it is to control the level at which it's hitting the truck bed. Now, there's certainly, if you've got dry material, it would not need to hit the truck bed as hard because it would come out of the truck bed a little more easily. If you have wet material, then it needs to hit a little harder in order to get material from the truck.
Anything else, Tom?
No, it seems to me it'd be great if there was a damper. Somebody put a little hydraulic thing on there or something to keep it from coming down so hard.
Yeah, it's got a function to help clear the bed.
Yeah, no, I get it completely, but I'm also, for the most part, I find this study to be, first I should say, I am familiar with sound reports, and this is an excellently, very well prepared report and very thorough. But it's also concluding that we don't have any terrible sound situation here, with that one exception. which is a little bit ugly, and that's why I'm focused on it.
Yep. Any other questions from the board? John?
Yeah, did you take into account backup beepers in any of your analysis?
Yeah, there were backup beepers that were occurring during the tests that we were doing. Generally, the backup beepers are quieter than those other sources that we're modeling. So the loading of material into the dump truck and also unloading material from a dump truck, those are louder sources. So we're focusing on those louder sources. We do, however, recommend in the mitigation section above that alternative backup alarms be used for the on-site equipment. So a loader and an excavator, that they be outfitted with, there's a variety of options, but one example would be a broadband backup alarm that makes sound like a white noise sound, like shh, shh, as opposed to a pure tone.
We've had testimony that those are not applicable to lots of kinds of equipment. Is that your experience? Or are they widely applicable to any equipment?
I've seen them used on excavators and loaders throughout the state. I can't say specifically to the excavators and loaders here, but they're fairly standard. I would imagine that it's a fairly easy switch out.
Do you have any guidance to give us on that part, Josh? Doable?
Well, I can put hush beepers on things that you have visibility in, but you can not hush pipe beepers on an excavator that you don't have complete vision at 360 degrees all the way around the machine. Because in my machines, any machines, you sit in a cab, you can't see the back corner.
Mhm.
So a hush beeper doesn't meet OSHA requirements.
Is that
Although you
Broadband?
can see all
well,
the
we're
way
using
around.
different terms. He said broadband, white noise. Is that what you're talking? Is
Yeah.
a hush
Hush
beeper?
yeah.
So that's in your view, that's not actually an option for your excavators.
No, it's not in any excavator.
Okay.
In
Is-
the application, the application notes that the applicant was installing essentially a kill switch or something like that for backup beepers, but that's not really OSHA qualified, is it? Like,
Yeah.
right? You can't really do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. This is a comment, not so much for the expert. Thank you for your running through all that. It's a lot of numbers, all these sound noise models and stuff like that are a little numbing to the layperson like myself, but I hear all the numbers and the monitor reports and the test reports. But I see the words in our zoning regulations, zoning bylaws, significant increase and incompatible. And just to note, after all this testimony we've just heard, I've heard a lot of testimony from neighbors who have heard noises that they considered to represent both significant increase and incompatible with their established use of the areas. And I just note that for context. Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Jim, do you have some questions?
I have a lot of questions. How late are you willing to go?
2 a.m.
2 a.m. All right.
I'm not.
Quick heads up, I will need to stop briefly at 8:59 just to turn off the building alarm so the police don't show up.
Okay,
So that'll be like a 2-minute break around then so that I can turn off that alarm.
that's fine.
It's 8:50 right now. Do you want to do that now?
I can't do it until it's within 5 minutes of the time period.
All right, so we'll try to watch the clock. You try to watch the clock. We'll break.
Sounds good.
We'll pause when you need to do what you got to do.
And if I hear beeping and run, then that's what it is. So,
All right, if we see
Okay.
blue lights.
Eddie, how many decibels is the alarm?
well, I thought I accidentally set it off the other day for the first time, and I thought it was like a backup alarm on the rail line near here. So it was quiet because I thought it was coming from outside.
All right, let's go, Jim.
So I'd like to start with page 44 of your report, Eddie.
Would you like this on the screen as we go along, Mr. Dumont?
Sure, it's helpful.
Page 44, you said?
Yes.
There we go.
Bottom half of the page. There we go. Bottom paragraph, midway through it. This discussion is about sound levels from multiple sources. And the bottom paragraph says, in the middle, that the loudest source in any situation always dominates the total sound level. You see that?
No.
Yes.
It's the first,
Got it.
third.
Got it. I got it now.
So Eddie, if background noise, pre-existing background noise is louder than the new noise, say, of Mr. Masterson's operation, the background noise will dominate the new noise, right?
No. So you read that sentence out of context. If we could fill that context in, that would, I think, inform the discussion a little bit.
Okay, but I'll explain.
So that sentence is referring to the previous sentence, which says if two sound sources differ individually by 10 decibels, then the louder of those two is generating 10 times more sound. This means that the loudest source in any situation dominates the total sound level. So I think you have to take that second sentence in the context of two sources where one is, around 10 decibels louder than another. So
Right.
If we're comparing 55 and 54, the 55 isn't really dominating the 54, they're additive.
Right, but as we will see when we go through the noise contour maps, your modeling predicts that some of the noise from Mr. Masterson's operation will be more than 10 decibels louder than the background noise, doesn't it?
Yes, that's true in
Yeah.
some areas.
And so then the noise from Mr. Masterson's operation, to quote you, will dominate the total sound level, correct?
Yes, it will be the main component of the total sound level. That's what dominate means.
But if we look at page 44, this is part of a standard primer that you attach to every report you do, correct?
Most of them, maybe not everyone, but yes.
In the text of what you wrote for this board, you never pointed out that in some situations, the noise from the Masterson operation will dominate the total sound level, did you?
Well, I think we pointed out right here, it's included in the report.
It's included in the attachment to the report that's an appendix that you attach to every report. You never applied that logic to this particular case, did you?
Yes, we did. I mean, we said what the sound level of the operation is, and we said what the sound level of the background sound level is. So,
Okay, so why don't you now tell the board the situations in which the new noise from Mr. Masterson's operation will dominate the existing noise? So I didn't see it in your report, so why don't you tell us about it now?
yes, so in the report, we state that the sound levels change constantly at the site. That's pretty clear in the monitoring section of the report. But we talk about, because it's easier for us to digest, average sound levels over the course of the day. And we also talk about the range of maximum sound levels. And so at some locations, depending on what the background sound level is at the time, the background sound level may dominate, or the sound levels from the proposed site may dominate, or they could be additive. It's not a cut and dry at any one location at any time where we can say the sound levels from this site will dominate. It will vary with time and location. So it's not simple enough to just say it will dominate now and it won't dominate now. So that's, that's not part. We reported the numbers. And so if you want to consider a certain time period, we can then look at that time period to see whether or not it would be the primary source or not.
Go ahead.
What, could you explain, Eddie, in what circumstances would the sound levels be additive versus times when they would not be?
Yeah, so this, excuse me, the sound levels would be additive when the sound levels of the background and the sound levels of the operation are within 10 decibels of each other. If they're within 10 decibels of each other, then they are additive. To be clear, and we talk about this in the appendix, if background is 55 and the source is 55, the sound level is not 110. It's not arithmetic addition, and that's because sound levels are logarithmic. And
Right.
so in sound level math, 55 plus 55 is 58. So these are some details that we're not getting into because they can be confusing to a lay board. But most that you would ever add is 3 decibels.
I always have. Hey, hold up. Hey, Tom, can you mute your sound? There. Thank you.
And Eddie, this might be a good time to turn off your alarm.
Yeah, I will go check on it.
Okay, good. Take a break. Anybody needs to take a break for the restroom? Now's your time.
How about coffee?
If we had some.
We do. I can make you a cup of coffee if you want it.
I'll spill it all over everything on your desk if I have.
He wants a double mocha latte with soy milk. He's very
Yes, well, or oat milk.
Okay. See, I knew.
I have Green Mountain coffee Keurig cups, and I have non-dairy creamer,
Wow.
powder form, and sugar.
Yeah.
Those are your 3 options. That's all I got. That's my day, that's how my body processes every day.
This is Bristol, you should have maple syrup or maple sugar.
Yes. But as a lowly town employee, I do not have the financial ability.
It's not in the budget?
It should be in the town budget.
It's not in the budget?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, those are personal. I buy all those supplies myself. Those aren't supplied by the town. Are you kidding me? And if you do want to buy it from the town, if you do want it from the town, you have to pay 75 cents a cup. Just saying. That's why all the coffee makers in my office.
Minutes, half an hour.
Doesn't this figure answer your question? That the orange or Lmax. And so all this time when Lmax is greater, 10 decimals greater than LE, which is most of the time, that's what we're gonna hear.
That's part of the answer. But we'll get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think these guys do a good job. Compared to others I've seen.
And he's back.
No security, we're good to go.
All right.
All right.
All right, we're back in action. So you answered my question about when it's additive. And that it's not arithmetically additive. I get that. So keep going.
I have another big picture question before we get into the report detail. You've referred to LEQ many times. LEQ is an average over a period of time, correct?
That's correct.
You haven't told us what period of time this LEQ is averaging.
Yeah, so this LEQ is over the period of the operations that we're modeling. So if we're talking about loading a dump truck, it's the average sound level while that dump truck is being loaded with material. Or if we're talking about a dump truck unloading material, it's the average sound level over the period in which that dump truck is unloading the material. So it will vary. The actual time will vary a little bit. Maybe it takes an extra minute to load one dump truck, and maybe it's takes less time to load another. But that's what we're talking about. So it's not a fixed 5-minute, 10-minute LEQ. It's over the course of that event.
How about with respect to the screening? How long did the modeling event take place?
It's the length of time that the screener is operating.
Yeah, I know.
The screener, but the screener is like it's however long it would operate at the site. So the LEQ is not going to change if the screener is operating for 5 minutes or if it's operating for 3 hours. That number applies to all of those time periods.
Okay, that's right. I get that for the modeling, but I may have forgotten already. When you monitored, did you monitor a screener?
We did not monitor a screener for this project. No, it's monitored from another project.
Okay. Over what period of time?
Approximately 10 minutes.
Okay.
That was in Randolph, correct?
It was, yes.
Were you present?
Let me I remember it starts with an R, Attorney Dumont. Let me just confirm. Yes, Randolph, Vermont, and I was present for that.
And was the screener screening topsoil?
It was screening topsoil with mixed with like some stone. It's the same sort of material that would be screened here. You might have some stone in it, which is why you're screening it in the first place.
Got it.
So let's talk about LEQ versus Lmax. And I think this is an important distinction. What we're interested in is human annoyance, correct?
I think what we're interested in is evaluating the standard. And so I don't remember the word annoyance being used at all in the standard.
Okay, well, bear with me. I'm interested in annoyance, how much this annoys the neighbors. So I'm going to ask you about annoyance.
Very good.
If you have if you're looking at a period of an hour, you're doing the LEQ for an hour. Like an hour of screening, an hour of anything. And for one instance, during that hour, the source generates 100 decibels of noise. But in 99,999 other instances during that hour, the noise generates 99 decibels. The L max will be 100, correct?
I'm sorry, did you say 100 and then the rest of the time it's 99?
Yep.
Yes, the LMAX
So-
would be 100.
The 1 out of 10,000 will be 100, and the 99,999 will not be the L max. That'll be the LEQ, correct?
Yeah, 99.000001 would be the LEQ.
Right. And is it your position that humans would find the one instance of 100 decibels more annoying than the 99,999 instances of 99 decibels?
No, I would, it's my experience that the residents would not be able to tell the difference between 100 decibels and 99 decibels because they would sound the same to the human ear.
Because the LEQ, what they're hearing over a period of time, has a greater effect on how we live our lives daily than a single split second of noise, correct?
I think it's a combination of both, which is why we evaluate both LMAX and LEQ.
And in this case, it's the LEQ from Masterson's operation that is more than 10 decibels higher than the background LEQ, correct? In some of your modeling.
I don't believe that is correct, no.
We'll go through your report now. On page 10, you have table 1.
All right, I'm there. Let Chris get there. Okay, Jim.
We have an LEQ for the 3 areas of 39, 39, and 40, correct?
That's correct.
And if we contrast that with your noise contour lines, and we'll go to each of these, and figure 9, figure 11, figure 13, figure 15. In some of these, we see that the LEQ that you've modeled is more than 10 above the LEQ of the background of 39 and 40, right?
No, that's incorrect.
That's incorrect. All right, well, let's go to figure 9 on page 18. Bearing in mind that the background is 39 or 40, figure 9, page 18, the yellow line is 50 and the orange line is 55 decibels, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And outside the property line, we've got LEQ of 55 and 50, correct?
That's correct.
And that's more than 10 LEQ above 39, is it not?
Yeah, so in the middle of this forest that you're referring to, it is more than 10. At all residences, it is less than 10.
I didn't ask you about residences. I'm asking you about property. Who owns the property that will be affected, that'll be 55 dBA, which is more than twice as loud as background? Who owns that?
I don't know.
Hold on a second. Where's the 55, Jim?
55 is the
No, I know.
orange.
Yeah, no, I get that, but, okay, so you're talking about the orange line.
The orange line.
Okay.
Oh, it's Pete.
Right. So what your modeling shows is that for at least one of the neighbors, the LEQ will be more than double the background noise, correct?
No, it won't.
55 as compared to 39. Every increase of 10 decibels is a doubling of the noise, correct?
It's a perceived doubling of loudness.
Right. So the difference between 55 and 39 is 16. So that's more than a perceived doubling, is it not?
It's more than a perceived doubling of loudness in this forested area here. Yes.
So in your report, anywhere did you point that out to the board?
Well, we're looking at the table right there. I mean, all of that is in there.
It's all in
So-
there if you ask the right questions.
Well, it's not really relevant to my analysis, so I'm evaluating the standard, and I don't see how that is relevant to the standard. If
Does
you
the owner,
think it
does
is,
the owner,
if
does
you
the
think
owner-
it is, you can
Go ahead.
certainly make that argument.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, if you think it is, you can certainly make that argument. But from a noise assessment standpoint, I do not think that that information is relevant to evaluating the standard.
Let's look at page 4 of your report. 4? 4, section 3.1, local standards.
Hold on. Okay,
This is the quote from the Bristol ordinance that you and Mr. Brown were discussing. Does this just say that no noise which is excessive at residences is prohibited? Or does it talk about at the property line?
It mentions property line, and it says excessive at property line, and represents a significant increase in noise levels in the vicinity of the development. It's not, the significant increase does not specifically reference the property line. Excessive is what is specifically referencing the property line. And so if we are making the argument on figure 9 that 55 decibels would be considered excessive at the property line, to be clear, 55 decibels is at the lower end of conversation. By that argument, one would say that someone having a conversation on the property line would be excessive. And I do not think having a conversation, it would cause excessive noise.
I thought you agreed with me that a decibel level increase of 10 is perceived as a doubling of loudness, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and are you suggesting that the noise of a truck gate swinging against a dump truck gate swinging shut, or the noise of a dump truck driving is like a conversation? They have the same kind of annoyance impact on neighbors.
Well, let's be clear, Attorney Dumont, you were not referring to a tailgate banging. You were referring to a sound level of 55 at the property line from a piece of equipment pulling off a trailer. So we're not really comparing apples to apples here.
All right, well, are you suggesting that the noise of unloading equipment from trailer has the same annoyance impact on a neighbor in this community as having a conversation with a neighbor at the property line?
I'm saying that the sound level from a vehicle being pulled off the trailer would cause a sound level of 55 at the property line. And if you were having a conversation at the property line, it would also be 55. I would also say that that is below World Health Organization guidelines for community annoyance. So if you are concerned about annoyance, we can talk about other standards for annoyance and evaluate the project against that. I don't see annoyance in the local standards.
Okay, so your view is that the local standard has no relevance to whether the neighbors will be annoyed by the noise they hear. What is the value that you think the local ordinance is protecting? What's the harm it's protecting against?
It's protecting against excessive noise of the property line and significant increases.
Okay, but why does the ordinance protect against those? What's the public interest in protecting against those if it's not annoyance?
I mean, I think you're asking for a legal conclusion or for me to presume what the thinkers of this standard were thinking about when they created the standard. I can't answer that.
And you mentioned the World Health Organization. They promulgate standards for protecting human health, correct?
No, they provide guidelines for public health.
Guidelines for public health. Correct. Thank you for correcting me. The neighbors here aren't alleging a health impact, they're alleging an annoyance impact. You have that distinction in mind?
From you telling me that, yes.
Okay.
But you specifically said that you were concerned with annoyance, and the World Health Organization does provide guidelines for annoyance. So
For the health impacts of annoyance, correct?
it's moderate annoyance and serious annoyance. I'm not sure. I'd have to go and look and see how the World Health Organization is defining that.
Okay, we've looked at figure 9, which shows 55 and 50 decibels across the property line. Figure 9 on page 18, we've been talking about that one.
Make it there. All right, I'm there.
And just so the record is clear, 50 decibels is the yellow line, 55 is the orange line, correct?
That's correct.
And 45 decibels is a green line?
It is a light green line.
Light green line. So a light green line of 45 decibels as compared to background is a 6 decibel increase, correct?
Approximately 6 decibels, yes.
So 10 decibels is perceived as doubling. What is a 6 decibel increase perceived as?
6 decibels is generally referred to as clearly noticeable. Now, it's similar to the Bristol town ordinance. These are some qualitative terms. But generally 6 decibels is considered clearly noticeable.
Thank you. So let's go to
while we're on that, less than 3 is not noticeable. So if we're talking 40 and 42, you can't hear that difference.
Thank you. Let's look at figure number 11 on page 22. This is unloading material from a dump truck in the topsoil storage area.
Figure 11, you said?
Figure 11, yes.
Page 22.
Figure 11, page 22.
Just making sure I had the right one.
I'm there.
Does this show at the crossing the property line on the north side, noise contour lines of 50 decibels and 45 decibels?
Yes.
And you agree again that the 50 decibel modeling result is more than 10 decibels above background, correct?
It's more than 10 decibels above the daytime background. That's the average over the course of the entire day. There will be times where the background sound level would be greater than or less than that value. But if we're looking at the overall daytime value, yes, it's more than 10.
Now let's talk about something that I think is really important that you haven't talked about yet, or just mentioned in passing. If I'm hearing noise that's 10 decibels above background for 10 minutes a day, is that going to have a different impact on me than if I hear it for 10 minutes a day at 8 o'clock, 10 minutes a day at 8:30, 10 minutes a day at 9 o'clock, 10 minutes again at 9:30, 10 minutes again at 11, 10 minutes at noon, 10 minutes at 1, 10 minutes at 1:30, 10 minutes at 2, and so on? Or is it all the same to you?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Could you clarify that?
In terms of impact on humans, human annoyance, does a 10 decibel increase in LEQ, to determine how annoying it will be, don't we have to know how many times a day that is going to happen?
Again, for annoyance, I would look to the World Health Organization guidelines for annoyance, and those are an average value over the course of an entire day. So it wouldn't necessarily matter that 10 minutes is happening now or 10 minutes happening later. If I were evaluating annoyance, I would look to those standards or guidelines, excuse me.
But forget it. I just want to be clear on your question that you're focusing in on 10-minute period. Are you thinking about 10 minutes in the course of a day, just at different times, or several 10-minute periods?
Multiple 10-minute periods during a day.
Okay, got it.
And I think, Eddie, you're saying, according to your analysis, whether we have one 10-minute period where the LEQ is 10 minutes above background, or we have 15 10-minute periods during the day when the LEQ is above background, to you, it doesn't make any difference, correct?
No, you're asking about annoyance. And so the way that you're framing it, that's not how I would evaluate annoyance.
But how about to my clients who are here in the room? Do you think it will affect their lives any differently, whether it happens once in the morning or it happens 15 times during the day?
Yeah, I can't speak to an individual's exposure to sound and how they will react to it. That's an individual thing. We talk in terms of public health and overall guidelines and standards. That's what I can refer to.
Okay, well, how many times during a day will what you depict in figure 11, page 22, how often will that happen during the day?
In figure 11, you said?
Yes.
Well, it could happen up to, we're talking around 72 trips in a single day. So that could happen up to 72 times in a day.
Because we're focusing on the topsoil loading and unloading period, which is relegated to 2 different weeks period. Scenario.
Yes, I will. Yeah, yeah. So
We're talking about unloading. Yeah.
that's unloading.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the next one, figure 13, which is screening topsoil. Again, this is proposed to be just in 2 discrete time periods.
Did you say 13?
13, yes, exhibit figure 13, page 24.
I'm there.
Again, we have the yellow line, which is 50 decibels extending over the border onto the neighboring property, correct?
Yes. Decibels being 5 decibels less than the lower end of typical conversation.
Is conversation generally a voluntary event?
Well, it depends.
I'm not volunteering right now.
Say tonight wasn't.
In whose house?
Yeah, in whose house? You agree?
Is that I mean, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. If that's a serious question. And I don't mean to downplay the question. I'm just saying that I would agree with the sentiment that sometimes it's voluntary and sometimes it's not.
Now, if we look at the next figure, figure 15 on page 26.
Say 1.5.
Figure 15, yes, 1.5,
Thank you.
page 26. Here, the 45 and 50 decibel contour lines are within the property line, correct?
That's correct. It looks like the 45 may be right on the one property line just to the east.
Thank you for pointing that out. It looks like it goes across the corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the 40 decibel property line. 40 decibel contour line, excuse me.
Dark green.
Dark green. So if you live in the neighborhood of where that dark green line is, what does the existing background noise consist of? Is it birds, wind, insects, spring peepers? What is it?
It consists of a variety of sources. Those sources you just named, so we would refer to as biogenic or geophonic sounds, biogenic being sounds from animals, and geophonic being primarily wind through foliage. Whether there's leaves on the trees or not, it's still foliage. So so the sound of wind blowing.
Traffic too?
What's that?
Traffic too?
Yes, so it also includes traffic, it includes aircraft flyovers, it includes the neighbor down the road mowing their lawn, it includes vehicle people and accessing their property, so vehicles coming in, vehicles going out, things of that nature.
In your monitoring data, can you sort out which of the existing background noise sources are biogenic and which are man-made?
Yes, we can. I should say we can sort out biogenic sounds fairly easily. Sorting out whether or not something is man-made or not is a little more difficult.
Well, let's turn to that figure. Let's. I believe those are where you're ending up is figures 5 and 6 on pages 11 and 12. Is that right? Will this help us answer that?
No, it won't.
All right. Do you have anywhere else you would point us to?
No, that we have not differentiated between biogenic and geophonic and anthropogenic sound within this report.
Here's an anthropogenic sound.
That is an anthropogenic sound. We're hearing a fire engine go by.
Actually, rescue squad.
Rescue squad.
Otherwise, Chris would be gone.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Hopefully you won't get called next.
I already went out once today to put out a fire, so it's all good.
Looking at, why don't you explain what figure 5 and figure 6 are for a minute?
Sure. Figure 5 and figure 6 are the monitoring results over time. We usually refer to them as time history graphs. And so on there are actually two graphs in each of these figures. The top graph is the graph of sound pressure level, and the bottom graph is a graph of a variety of environmental and weather conditions. I'll focus on the top graph for now. The top graph, the vertical axis is sound pressure level, ranging from 25 to 85 decibels. And the horizontal axis is time, going from September 8th through September, September 18th, which is on the far right side of the graph. You will see three colored lines that go across that page. Those represent different sound level metrics. The top orange line is the maximum sound level, or the L max, for a 10-minute period. The LEQ is the dark gray line that runs down the middle of that table or that graph. That would be the average sound level on a 10-minute basis. And the L90 is the green line at the bottom of the graph that represents the quietest sound, 10-minute sound levels. Excuse me for coughing, I'm getting over a cold.
You compare the top graph with the bottom graph. Well, the bottom graph is wind speed, correct?
Yeah, so that was the top graph. The bottom graph is environmental conditions. So it shows wind speed, which are the red line at the bottom of the graph. And so we don't see much there because we did not have high wind speeds during the monitoring period. And then the light blue line that goes up and down periodically is relative humidity, and the purple line that also goes up and down periodically is temperature, which really, those temperature really doesn't come into play here. It's something that we look at more closely during monitoring during the winter months to make sure we're not monitoring when it is too cold out or outside of the specifications of the equipment. And then the vertical bands are periods where there was some precipitation. And so you'll see, if you compare those vertical bands of precipitation with the sound levels in the top graph, there are some periods where data is excluded from our analysis because it was raining.
Those are the dotted lines in the top graph.
That's correct.
So you're saying you cannot look at figure 5 and give us any opinion as to how much of the LEQ is biogenic?
Not from figure 5, I can't.
From any source in your report, can you?
No, we're not differentiating between biogenic or geophonic in the report, although I believe I did testify earlier that the sound levels were approximately 10 decibels higher at night due to biogenic sounds.
Let's pursue this a little bit longer. If we turn to the question of biogenic noise versus man-made noise and how annoying they may be, let's turn to page 40 of your report, which is part of the primer. You write here that a field with insects can generate noise that's over 50 decibels. Looks like the low 50s, 52, 53 decibels, correct?
Yeah, yes, a field of insects could be about 50 decibels. Of course, it depends on what field and what insects. This is generally meant to be a graph to kind of introduce people to the concepts of sound levels and different types of sources.
If an area has a field with insects in the field, are you saying that loud noise, for example, from loading a truck, that's the same level of noise, would not be annoying? Same decibels would not be annoying because the field with insects is already 50 decibels. So the truck that's 50 decibels won't be annoying. Is that what you're saying?
No, as I've said previously, I haven't made any conclusions about annoyance. I haven't assessed annoyance. I don't see the word annoyance in the Bristol zoning ordinance.
So going back to the figure we were at, which was figure 15 on page 26, looking at the 40 decibel contour line running over the property line onto the neighbor's property north, that's man-made noise. That's approximately the same decibel level as the background noise, correct?
Yes, it's the same, approximately the same sound level as the daytime background sound level over the course of a day. There again, like as I mentioned, there will be times where it will be higher but where background will be higher and times where background will be lower.
But the noise from the man-made noise will be of a different character than the background noise, correct?
It may or may not be. I would say that it's likely that it would be of a different character, but it is also possible that it would not be of a different character.
And
it depends on what is making up the background sound level at that time.
And as a certified acoustical engineer, you have the ability to study the character of the background noise, correct?
Well, I think I want to hear what your definition of the character is, but we are able to look at whether or not a source is biogenic, geophonic, anthropogenic, and we can look at the different frequency content. If those are the elements that you mean by character, then yes.
So if you had chosen to, you could have determined how much of the existing 39 to 40 decibels of background noise is insects, trees in the wind, birds, spring peepers, whatever. You could have done that, but this report does not do that, correct?
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, we can separate out what is biogenic. Separating out geophonic from anthropogenic is not as straightforward and is not easily doable. There's not a standard engineering methodology to do that.
And because of that, do you think a board such as this should rely upon the testimony of the neighbors who have already heard this noise and they've testified how annoying it is to them and how deeply it affects their daily lives?
I think I'm not going to advise the board on what they should or shouldn't take into account. That's their job, not mine.
look at page 46. It's Appendix B, page 46. Thank you.
Which table would you like?
That's the other one.
Table 3?
Table 3, yes. This tells us, as I think Mr. Wells has noticed already, that a dump truck unloading topsoil is the noisiest event that you measured, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the second noisiest is screening topsoil at 116 Lmax, correct? The sound power, this is sound power level, not sound pressure level.
The next highest sound power level is unloading equipment off the trailer.
Oh, yes, thank you, 117, right?
Yeah, and just to be clear, we're talking about relative differences in sound pressure level. Noisiness might be there might be a different definition for noisiness. So, but if we're talking about which is relatively louder, then yes, the loudest is the dump truck unloading topsoil, and then unloading equipment off a trailer would be second.
Eddie, what's the column to the farthest right, absolute height? Meters, I assume meters. What are you referring to there?
Yeah, so the absolute height is the elevation, the ground elevation plus the height at which the source is located in the model above ground elevation. Relative height, which is 3 columns to the left, is the relative height above ground elevation.
Got it.
Looking at the excavator loading dump truck, model scenario 5, is that going to happen just in a 1 week period here, a 1 week period there, or will that be continuous, if you know?
My understanding is that the loading of dump trucks will be on an as needed basis. And so that's not confined to a specific time period. That could be 1 dump truck this day and 4 the next day. Sorry, Attorney Dumont, there's one item that I didn't cover in direct that is in this table that might just be relative to helping avoid confusion. If I may just highlight that briefly.
Sure, go ahead.
So table 3, the columns that Attorney Dumont and I were just referring to are labeled Lmax and LEQ. Those values are sound power levels. All of the other information in the report is sound pressure level. And I just want to point that out because they're not the same thing. Sound power level is the emission values that we would put into the model so that we can then calculate the sound pressure level throughout the area. What we actually perceive as sound pressure level, we don't perceive the sound power level. So briefly, you can think about the sound power level is similar to the wattage of a light bulb. A 60 watt light bulb is a 60 watt light bulb no matter where you take it. But that 60 watt light bulb might seem brighter in one room or dimmer in another room, depending on the environmental conditions. So ultimately, what you care about in terms of your experience of that light bulb is how bright you perceive it, the lumens. And that's the sound pressure level that we're talking about in the rest of the report. So I just want to make sure that the board doesn't get confused when they see 128 as an Lmax here or whatever the other values are, and think that if you're standing right there, you're going to measure 128. That's not the case. It's a different metric altogether.
Thank you. Looking still at the same, go ahead, Kevin.
So this pertains to one of Jim's questions not that long ago. The model scenarios 2 through 5 are all loading or unloading during the topsoil stockpiling period. Right?
And screening. It's
And
all
no, fair, and screening. Got it.
No, I don't think that's right, Kevin, because 4 and 5 are loading topsoil after it has been screened and sorted.
Right.
So
yeah, but it's all during the topsoil.
No, I think as Eddie just said, it happens as needed over the course of the year.
Well, that's what I was trying to that's why I went back to it.
I think I misunderstood your question then. My understanding is that the unloading of material will happen over those two separate week periods that were talked about during the traffic testimony. And the screening will also happen in close proximity to those 2 week periods. But the loading of material into dump trucks for use on projects isn't necessarily within those 2 weeks. That could
Okay.
happen anytime over the course of the year.
Okay, good clarification, thanks.
And on that point, model scenario 4 says loader loading dump truck. Model scenario 5 says excavator loading dump truck. Can you explain the difference?
Well, both can be used to load material into the dump truck. I think while we were at the site, because either could be used, we monitored either or both and decided to model both as well. I think you could ask the applicant there what is typically used, but I suspect they would want occasionally the ability to do both or either.
Can you just describe to us lay people what's the difference between a loader and an excavator?
Got it. Sorry, I understand now. So a loader is has a bucket that will move the bucket into the dirt, essentially driving into the dirt and then lift it up and then turn towards the loader, towards the truck and dump it out in a forward motion. The excavator, however, is like the backhoe that's shown on the cover of this report. It would scoop the dirt towards the excavator, lift it up, rotate, and then dump it by turning the bucket away from the excavator. Both methods dump dirt into a bucket. It's just whether or not you're dumping it forwards or backwards, and scooping towards the vehicle or scooping away from the vehicle.
Okay, now thank you. On the same,
Before you go.
go ahead.
So Josh, bucket size is gonna differ though, right? Bucket size on the loader bigger versus bucket size on the excavator you used? How so?
What?
How so?
One's based on, they're both different yardages.
Yeah, I know. Your
I
bucket.
have no
your-
idea. I got 8 excavators.
Well, the ones that we were using here for the studies,
That one right there, I don't know, maybe a yard bucket. Well, shy of a yard.
that's for the excavator.
Yeah, and the loader's
I-
about 3
Just
yard
looking at
bucket.
that picture, I was guessing that the loader bucket's was gonna be,
Three
would have
of
been a
those.
lot bigger.
3 of those.
Okay.
So back to page 10, table 1, summary of background sound levels. Page 10.
Got it. Lost my concentration.
The first column is LEQ. We've been discussing that. The second column is L90. Do that. And now I'm going to refer everybody to page 44. Because the caption percentile sounds -LN. Thank you. And the second paragraph says L90 is often a good representation of the quote ambient sound unquote in an area. So what we saw on page 10, the values of 29, 30, and 33, those were a good representation of the ambient sound in the area, correct?
Yes, and by ambient, that is the sound that is happening when nothing else is. So there is no biogenic sound. There is no wind in the trees. There's no distant aircraft or nearby aircraft. There's no distant vehicle or nearby vehicle.
It's the quietest 10%, right?
It is the quietest 10% of the time.
Okay.
Did your modeling predict the L90 when the Masterson operation is underway?
No, it did not.
So we don't have a before and after comparison of L90, do we?
Well, the ambient sound level when the Masterson operation is occurring would be similar to the LEQ. The sound levels are not changing. Like a screener operating at 41 is operating pretty consistently at 41. It's not like it's dropping down to 30 and then back up to 45. It's a fairly consistent source. So for a lot of the sources, it would be similar to the LEQ. If I may, depending on how much longer we will go, I would like to request a restroom break if we could.
Go. Take a break.
Yeah, go ahead.
No cruel and unusual punishment here.
Okay. What? It's gonna be a little while longer. Let me take this break to see if I can
Yeah.
shorten it up. That'd be good.
And what's talking about?
It's on the ice of him liking on the fire.
What?
No, it's killing me.
That's why you keep watching.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that's one of the big ones. Also, something that spasms so freaking bad on that.
Took the spill today.
Oh yeah,
It's really hot.
we were in Lincoln putting out a camper that was on fire, and
Oh, no.
oh yeah, up on where the hell was it? Up no, off Quaker. It was
It's never as low as LEQ.
Did you have to go out to that Queen Bee's fire?
no, I was
No,
not.
Moncton, but I didn't.
We got called in.
Yeah,
I
figured-
personally did not.
Yeah, I figured Monk or Bristol got called in.
Well, of course, now that's supposed to be higher.
Yeah, up past Elder Hill Farm,
Which is why I drew this.
way up in there. So it was icier than hell. Got out of the truck, grabbed
This is just.
buck and just went down. And it's one of those when you got stuff in your hands, you're trying not to. Oh yeah, I should have just
When
fallen
you
and
were-
rolled. I was gonna roll now would have been
Any
fine.
of that are at age.
Can
Tried to catch myself.
can we determine?
And I felt the staff. I'm like,
From any-
I'm too old for this crap.
Yeah,
That was the first word that rolled out of my mouth. I'm like,
Yeah, that tells me.
that might have been not the first
No.
word. There was another
Yeah.
word that came out first, but that was the
Golly,
golly gee.
that's 2 words.
That is back, so whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
True, briefly, yeah, it was brief.
So somebody's hunting adventure gone awry.
Your point.
I don't
you
know
made.
what started it. It's in their yard.
Okay.
Let's see, where were we here? Let's briefly go back to figures 5, 6, and 7,
Pages.
which is pages
11,
11, 12, and 13.
Which one would you prefer to have on the screen?
All three.
I can't do all three.
Right, just do one. How about we do the first one, which is
Figure 5,
figure 5.
perfect.
Are you with us, Eddie, on figure 5?
Yes,
This
yeah,
figure
I'm-
5 shows us, among other things, what LMAX is at different times of the day, correct?
yes, that's correct.
And this is background LMAX at different times of the day, correct?
Yes, it's background except for the very first portion of the graph. The first hour or so is during testing that we talked about previously.
Right. So when the when the LMAX from the project is elevated, if that occurs during times of the day when the existing LMAX is low, then the project LMAX will stand out above, will be unmistakable as a loud noise for the community, correct?
Well, it depends on where it is. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a loud noise, but if it is higher than the existing sound levels, whether it's the LMAX or the LEQ, then it would stand out above those levels.
And looking at exhibit figure 5, there are times of the day when the LMAX is not louder than the LMAX of a field with insects in it, correct? Which is in the low 50s.
That's right. So during the day, the LMAX generally is between 45 and 60. But it varies every second.
Am I correct that your report does not address the noise impacts of 80 additional truck trips per day on residences along Lower Notch Road?
It addresses the maximum sound level of those trucks as it pulls out from the site. It does not address the average sound level of 80 truck trips over the course of a day.
But you only modeled at the location where the trucks leave the driveway, correct?
I mean, that's correct, but the setback from the road is similar along Lower Notch Road. So the LMAX that we're modeling in that area would be a similar LMAX along Lower Notch Road.
So Eddie, I think I'm getting tired because I'm slipping here. So repeat what you said about the average, or Jim and Eddie together, the average 80 truck trips is in or not in the LMAX?
The LMAX that we're reporting in the report, for the trucks on the access road, is for a single truck at its worst case location. So what you could say is if there are 80 trucks, that LMAX would occur 80 times.
Got it.
That's helpful. Let's turn to page 32, figure 20.
Okay.
Is this what you had in mind?
Yes.
So what you're saying is we take the center of these circles, pink, red, orange, yellow, green, and just move them up and down Lower Notch Road.
That's right.
Right. So that would tell you that the pink circle of 65 decibels is going to move up and down Lower Notch Road.
That's right. Just like other vehicles that are on Lower Notch Road currently.
Have you read Beth Ephus's letter to the board in which she described her living situation near the road?
I have not.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it, part of it to you, and this is already in the record.
Can I ask a quick question, Jim?
Yeah.
Where is her residence on the map, in relation to the property?
North,
Would we be able to identify? North of Many Waters Road?
It's like number, oh, sorry.
Yeah, they have there.
I'll just point you to it.
Sure.
It's gonna be like, she might be there.
Okay.
One of those two.
Yeah, Helen, why don't we put you under oath and you can answer the question?
Did she get us her address?
I have her address some, oh, yes, 2120, there, it's right there.
All right, that's what.
2120 Lower Notch Road.
And that's in the, in appendix C.
Yeah.
That's one of the- So that's, what's her name, Ekrus?
Ekrus, Ekroos. She says, I live right beside the road, and my house is built into the hill beside the road. My house literally shakes when large heavy trucks go by. Plates that hang on the wall, sconces on lights and windows make noises when the trucks go by. She continues, it was not as much of a problem until the year MDP began transporting his vehicles on the road, and Lathrop began transporting log trucks, sometimes tandems. Do you think her situation will get better, stay the same, or get worse if this project goes forward?
Well, we can't go to north with our vehicles, period.
So Josh is saying he can't go north with his vehicles, period. So that would include not just loaded trucks, but
Dump trucks.
Dump trucks, we'd like to apply.
Yeah,
To
we
have,
can't, she's complaining about dump trucks, big trucks, town trucks, Lathrop's log trucks. Not a pickup.
Right, the
Like
proposal
your
is to
vehicle on
just
the road,
turn
she's not
south.
complaining about that. So we are not asking to go north past her house with a dump truck.
Understood.
and empty or empty or full. And your contractors will all be instructed, they have to approach from the south.
Yeah, I've already instructed that.
All right. She continues, I live almost a half a mile away from the site and hear a large booming sound. I've been told that the sound is the tailgate of a large dump truck dropping. Does that make sense to you, what she testified to?
I mean, I understand the text that you're reading. I can't speak to her experience. So I don't know what it is that she is hearing.
If we just look at the noise impacts of large trucks south of the site, taking that pink circle and moving it south will demonstrate south along Notch Road. That'll demonstrate the properties that are subject to noise of 65 decibels, correct?
To the neighbors to the south.
Neighbors to the south.
Yeah, and all the ones that are supporting me. I don't think they're gonna complain.
Yeah, and so the record is clear, Mr. Masters says he doesn't think those neighbors will complain, they support him. But
Yeah.
I will point out that the zoning law does not hinge in any way, shape, or form
Yeah.
on what the existing residents believe or don't believe.
But just make your points, Jim.
Yeah.
It's late.
Well, I would, except we have somebody who's making his own arguments in the middle of it,
Well,
which I'm going to respond to.
Jim, if you're asking me a question, could you use my name so that I know to respond?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you about DNL now, which you discussed earlier this evening, and it's discussed on page 33 of your report.
Portion of it, part of it's on 32, part of it's on 33.
Yeah, let's look at 33.
I can get you half. Would you like the top half of the bottom? I mean, I'm limited on what I can do.
There you go, that's good.
Perfect.
Just so everybody understands what you did say earlier this evening, the DNL is a yearly average, correct?
That's right. It's an annual DNL, an annualized DNL.
So it takes the noise data for 365 days, including the nights, and it says and it weights noise in the night more heavily, and then says, here's our average, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So if I were to shoot a cannon off every day, twice a day, what impact would that have on the DNL?
It depends on the sound level of the cannon, but it would have an effect on it.
It would be a very small effect, wouldn't it?
It depends on the sound level. If the cannon is 140 decibels, small amounts, like twice a day, could have an effect on the DNL. If the cannon is far away and it's only say 70 decibels, then it would have a small effect on the DNL.
Because we're taking a short-term noise once or twice a day, and fitting into an average of 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it doesn't surprise you that the DNL that you project is unchanged. That's what you would have expected even before you did any analysis in this case, correct?
That's correct. There may be a police officer at the door. The alarm may have gone off. If you can give me one moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where is he?
He's in White River.
You might have called him.
I was at a install when I worked for IDX down in Scarsdale, New York, 2:00 in the morning at a medical clinic. But they weren't quite as nice. They opened the door with a revolver right here as I walked out the door.
So the officers are thinking some interloper, some robber.
Well, it-
come and shut off the alarm.
Well, no,
So they can-
it
So they
turns
can
out,
free reign of the place.
yeah, it turns out that the car Hertz gave me was registered as stolen, and Scarsdale is apparently a big dumping point for stolen vehicles. So they thought while we were in the stolen vehicle, we also broke into this medical clinic to steal stuff. Oh, it was great. Never been that scared in my life.
So, any little hiccup, any little accident, any little.
Shucks. It's in the table for the.
I wanted to beat him. Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather go a little longer and have it come back.
He's back.
They have decided to not detain me.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not under arrest?
I'm not. I explained that I was doing a hearing late, so and,
Thank you.
I believe my boss has been informed that I'm here. Attorney Dumont, I was distracted when I answered your very last question. I don't know if you remember what it was, but if you do, I would love it if you could ask it again.
I think I asked you if the results for DNL were ones you would have predicted before you did any analysis, and you said they were.
The DNL of 48, is that what we would have predicted? Is that what you're at?
DNL is unchanged.
Oh, that the DNL is unchanged? I don't know that I would have predicted it ahead of time. It makes sense that the sources are happening so infrequent that it would not affect the overall DNL. That is the point of the analysis, but so it makes sense. I don't know that I thought about it ahead of time before doing the analysis.
So in doing the DNL analysis, how many times a day did you input that there would be LEQs of 55 on neighbors' land? How many times a day did you input that? Once, or was it 15 or something larger or smaller?
It's for the events that are listed here on this page. So
What
it's
page?
the page that's shown on the screen right now.
Okay.
For the 144 dump truck pass-bys, the 72 trucks being loaded, 72 trucks being unloaded, and the screener operating for 1 week. So it's assuming that all of those events are happening over the course of a year.
So you inputted 72 trucks unloading topsoil. What about loading topsoil into the trucks?
That is the second bullet point, 72 trucks being loaded with a loader in the topsoil storage area. The loader being the louder of the two options.
And did you input that 305 days a week, 52 weeks a year, or just during the 2-week periods?
72 times, it doesn't matter when it happens, it's 72 times per year.
Okay, so the 55 decibels on the neighbor's property, you only inputted 72 times a year.
Yes, 72 times per year for a period, well, the length of time that it takes to load a truck. So, which is on the order of, 5 minutes or so.
Finally, I want to see if I understood your answer to Mr. Moyer's question. What is the length and height of the berm that you built into your model?
The height of the berm is 12 feet and the length is 260 feet long approximately. It's shown in figure 21 on page 35. And it's not a straight line. It goes to the north and to the east of the topsoil storage area.
Great. Thank you. Sorry to keep you so late at the office.
That's okay.
Does the board have any other questions for Ed, Mr. Duncan? Eddie? Okay, applicant have anything further? All right, let's talk process, Bryn. Do you want to submit some sort of written argument? I don't want to close the hearing and start the clock.
Right.
So we wanted, what do you want, 2 weeks, 3, what do you want? I don't want to have to reconvene the hearing to accept, to just accept that, but if we come up with a filing deadline and we can agree by stipulation that the hearing is not closed until those are received.
Right.
And then we'll be on the clock and schedule a deliberative session. Because we're gonna have to bring the board back together for deliberative session.
That makes sense.
What do you think?
So I already submitted a letter
Right.
with my argument that this doesn't qualify as a business yard.
Right.
And if you agree with that, then much more what you talked about today, you don't need to answer because it doesn't qualify. So I will summarize that, but I really need to propose findings to you on all the other issues as well. I'm thinking 2 weeks.
And you may or may not want to address these actual reports.
Yes,
right.
I will.
Yeah. So what do you think?
So I would normally say 2 weeks, but I have a 2-day trial for next week and another trial the week after. So I need 3 weeks.
You're just as horrible as I am at predicting how quickly you'll get it done.
And I'm thinking that 3 weeks puts us pretty much into Christmas. See, today is 3 weeks from today. Let me just look at my calendar.
He's got it. Chris has got it.
Mr. Chairman, while he's looking at his calendar, it occurs to me that the applicant could stand to create a little clarity in its application, because we heard some things tonight with respect to the actual number of vehicles. We also, the berm has been added in this report and is part of the calculations, but it's not in the site plan. So I think we should suggest that the applicant think about all of the different testimony and make sure we know what exactly they're applying for.
They're proposing. That's a good point. We can use the same deadline. I think we have a good idea, but clarification would be helpful.
So that we know exactly what it is they're proposing, because it's evolved a little bit, and I appreciate that they've evolved it partly in response to issues that have been raised. But I think we should know exactly what they'd like. What they're proposing.
What's the date?
You generally meet on Tuesdays, right?
First Tuesday, second Tuesday, and fourth Tuesday if we meet.
Okay, so if you meet, well, the fourth Tuesday is the 26th. I hope you're not meeting on the 20th.
I won't.
I won't be here.
Yeah, I could get you what I have to file by the 19th or the 18th.
All right.
Oh, great.
That works, or which, the 18th is what?
18th is Monday.
So you want to do Tuesday, 19th?
Yeah, if you think of me Tuesday, I'll have to make sure it's here
Well-
by the date.
Yeah,
Legally
I mean,
Tuesday.
well, we're not gonna meet, I'm not intending to meet when you submit.
Okay.
That, I just want an agreement that that's when you submit by the 19th
Okay.
is when the deemed approval clock
All
begins.
right.
Otherwise, we're gonna have to open a hearing and
Accept the documents and
accept
close
the
the hearing.
and I'd really rather not do that.
Yeah, okay, I will commit to getting what I'm getting in by Tuesday the 19th.
Can
I
you do
close
the same?
business on the 19th.
Okay, and that's when the hearing officially closes. Yes,
Yes,
okay.
and then your 45-day clock runs.
All right, so Carol, if you're still with us, we're not really sure. You could have left a long time ago. So the agreement is that both sides will have until December 19th to submit any written materials, and the hearing is continued until then. And once the 19th comes and those materials are submitted, then the hearing will be closed. And the 45-day period for us to render a decision will begin. Is that right, Jim?
Yep.
Okay. Okay with you guys?
19th, Tuesday.
Yeah, all right, so that's when the clock starts. We're gonna have to get together. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a Tuesday if it's just a deliberative session, but we're gonna have to get together relatively soon after that, when people have had a chance to digest the reports and start deliberations. So we'll leave that date open for now, but
So your next meeting after that would be either the 26th, which is a no-go.
yeah.
The following one would be January 9th, which would be well within your 45 days.
Yeah, I know, but we could even meet the week sooner. It doesn't have to be on a Tuesday.
Right, and
Because if we're doing deliberative session, I don't, who knows how long that's gonna take, and I don't
Right.
want other things on the agenda.
oh no, yeah, I'm good with that.
So we'll maybe try to find a day in the first week of January. Yes, John?
Yeah, at one point we had talked about a site visit, and I, for one, would still like to see the site. I think it was something that we discussed twice. The first time, there was a pretty good consensus that we should go look at it. The second time, I think it was a less clear consensus, but we didn't decide. And I know that would be part of this process, and
Could be. Or well, what's the board's feel? We could schedule that if people thought it was necessary. People could, board members could do it individually with Josh's permission during regular hours or something like that, if folks wanted to.
If Josh is willing to let us do it individually, I think that'd be fine, rather than having to all go there. I mean, we'll stay away from your house, but we'll just take a quick look at the rest.
Yeah, well, the contractor's yard is up by the house, but it would be during business hours. Do you want somebody to call first to let you
No,
know?
just drive in, check it out.
Okay. Josh has given all of us permission to make our own site visit, and
You want them to reach
Well,
out to
are
me?
we
when they
still on
get
the
there,
record?
so-
yeah,
So
Do you want them to reach out to the office just so we?
I know you understand this, Kevin,
Yeah, just
but
text
it's
me.
worth putting on the record that if anybody feels they need to base a decision upon what they saw during the site visit, then you have to reopen the record and the clock will start running again.
yeah,
And you put on the record what you saw that you're relying on and allow everybody, whether it's the applicant
Yeah,
or anybody
yeah.
else, to respond to it.
right.
That's right.
It would presumably not be evidentiary. It would be helpful then for anyone who wishes to go check out the site to do so before the 19th. Because the hearing, otherwise, right now the hearing is scheduled to close on the 19th. So do it before. And if there's something evidentiary that someone wants to present based on the site visit, or and wants us as a board to schedule a more formal one together, then we'll have to continue the hearing, but, so do it before the 19th.
And Josh has asked if anyone who's going up, if you could just call the office and let us know that you're up there, so that if we get calls that there's random vehicles driving around his property, we can give them a heads up of what it is.
Yep.
So if you could just let the office know, either call my office or shoot me an email on the day you were hoping to go up, that'd be great.
I do, since a site visit is usually done as a group and all the parties can participate. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it individually, but I think my clients should have the same opportunity. So maybe I'd like to ask Kevin, maybe when you go, you could just take people with you who want to come. Is that all right? Or whoever wants it, so that my clients have a chance to see what you see, that's all.
They've already seen the whole property.
Yeah, but from the inside, because they can't go on it, they can't just wander on it, so.
Okay.
Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll ask Kevin, since you're the lawyer, and I know you won't discuss the case with anybody.
Nope.
Just when you go, just say whoever wants to come with me, this is when I'm going.
So I'll let you know.
Sure.
Is a Saturday okay, Josh?
Yep.
I still have a day job. Although we do get supposedly $5 for this meeting, so maybe I don't need to keep a day job. All right, I'll let you know.
Yeah, hopefully you can all go in Kevin's car or at least
It's a clown car, so you can
okay.
fit everybody in.
All right.
All right, are we done?
Thank you.
All right, we're concluded for this evening.
Thanks for letting me go so late.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Eddie. Glad you didn't get arrested. Thanks for everyone's patience, but
Yeah, they'll get you on the way out.